That night, the roommates from both dorms gathered at the LNS house for dinner. As they sat around the table, dipping food into the simmering hot pot, the conversation inevitably turned to Happy Nest. Normally, a magazine like Business Weekly wouldn't have much of a following among college students. If they were buying reading material, it was usually romance novels or fashion magazines. Something as specialized as a business journal was a tough sell, even for business majors. But this issue was an exception. The man on the cover, Happy Nest CEO David Chung, was the biggest story on the internet over the past few months. For college students, who were intimately familiar with every single game Happy Nest had launched, he was a legend. From Garden Grab to the name Compatibility Test, and now Brainiac Blitz, the site's features had swept through campuses, becoming an absolute sensation. Because of that, when David Chung appeared on the cover of the weekly, it immediately caught the attention of countless students. Everyone saying this David Chung guy is the biggest dark horse in the tech world this year. Some people are even comparing him to the next Zuckerberg. Quinn Liu was holding court, relishing the gossip. The others nodded in agreement. Totally, someone added. The games he's developed are all so much fun. Seriously, half the time my friends are online, they're on Happy Nest. Lily Liu, who had joined them for dinner, chimed in with a look of deep understanding. It's true. I've even heard some of the adults talking about it at family dinners. They mention Happy Nest and say the company's business strategy is just out of this world, totally unconventional. They say either the CEO is a once-in-a-generation genius, or he's not a master strategist pulling the strings behind the scenes. Marco Shaw held up his copy of Business Weekly, waving the cover at everyone. No need to guess. The interview says it all. Besides David Chung, Happy Nest is a two-man show. The other half is the CSO. Most of these projects were dreamed up by the chief strategy officer. As he spoke, he pointed to the shadowy silhouette behind David Chung on the cover. See? Right there. So mysterious. Won't even do an interview for the magazine. Molly Tang jumped in, her interest piqued. I read the article too. The CSO is super low-key. No one even knows what he looks like. The only thing they know is that he's supposedly really young, probably not even 30. Marco sighed with envy. Not even 30, and he's already a partner at Happy Nest. 60 million users. A bunch of venture capitalists are throwing money at them, begging to invest. He's totally won at life. Quinn nodded emphatically. No kidding. Young, rich, and brilliant. The definition of the ultimate eligible bachelor. He hasn't even shown his face, and there's already a massive online fan club of girls saying they want to marry him. Molly was lost in a fantasy. Wow, I'd love to know what the CSO looks like. If he's even a little handsome, and he finally reveals himself, he'd be just like the billionaire protagonist from my novels. All he'd have to do is wave, and an army of female fans would pounce on him. The billionaire protagonist in question was currently gnawing on a lamb chop, totally engrossed. He mumbled a casual comment. Maybe he just likes to stay private. A bunch of female fans probably isn't that appealing to him. Before he could finish, Marco, who was scrolling through the student forums on his phone, let out a strangled cry. Holy shit, are all his fans this hot? Leon leaned over to look, his eyes widening. Whoa, they're bold. Is that a girl in a school uniform and black stockings holding a sign, asking to meet him? In an instant, the lamb chop was abandoned. The billionaire protagonist wiped his hands and started to lean over. Let me see. Halfway there, he abruptly changed direction and sat back down, his expression completely unfazed. Then again, there's nothing worth looking at. The culture on the internet these days is just too frivolous. It needs to change, he declared, a righteous tone in his voice. He then turned to his girlfriend with an air of moral superiority. Don't you agree, Claire? Claire, Sterling nodded. You have a point, Leo Wallace suggested, his face a mask of sincerity. In that case, maybe you could let go of my ear? I'm worried your hand will get tired. Claire beamed. Thanks, but it's not tired at all. I think I'll hold on for a little while longer. After dinner, the group migrated from the dining table to the living room couch, cracking open beers and continuing their idle chatter. The topic once again circled back to the mysterious, low-key CSO of Happy Nest. Jay Jiang adjusted her glasses and offered an objective, rational analysis. A new website goes from 0 to nearly 60 million registered users in 3 months. From the moment it launched to the release of each new feature, they've barely made a single misstep. Every choice they've made has been almost perfect. To achieve that, you'd have to be either a god or a demon. Lily Liu looked thoughtful. But if he's really that young, it doesn't quite add up. Maybe it's just a smokescreen put out by Happy Nest? It's possible the real decision-maker is still the CEO, David Chung. After all, he was a senior executive at Nexus before this. His business sense and strategic planning skills were already top tier. This theory earned nods of agreement from the others. But then, Claire, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly shook her head. No, David Chung couldn't have done this on his own. Everyone paused, looking at Claire in confusion. Realizing all eyes were on her, Claire snapped out of her thoughts and smiled. Oh, it's nothing. I'm just guessing. Besides, if the CSO wasn't bringing something major to the table, there's no way David Chung would willingly share control of the company, right? It was a casual excuse, but it made sense. The group nodded in understanding. That's a good point. Leave it to Claire. The logic is flawless. So that CSO really is a big deal. The chatter started up again as the friends debated and marveled. But at that moment, Claire's gaze fell on the Business Weekly magazine sitting on the coffee table. Her eyes drifted past the cover star, the CEO, and settled on the silhouette behind him. A flicker of doubt and hesitation crossed her face. She had seen the magazine by chance earlier that day at Sterling Holdings and had only just learned about this supposed power duo at Happy Nest. In her past life, she knew Happy Nest existed. She had even played its signature game, Garden Grab. The problem was, in her memory, the Happy Nest of her past life never had a CSO. This was something new, something that had appeared unexpectedly in this lifetime. Though her memories of that time were fuzzy, her intuition whispered that something wasn't right. Just then, the conversation about the chief strategy officer took a different turn. Marco Shaw waved his hand dismissively. Maybe it was just luck. The site's only been online for a few months. Unless he keeps this hot streak going, I won't be impressed. A few of the girls disagreed. You can't just rely on luck when you're starting a business. Launching this many hit games in a row is already incredible. No one, no matter how brilliant, can have a 100% success rate. Leon raised his hand with blunt honesty. The protagonist in a sci-fi novel could. His statement earned fervent agreement from Marco and Dylan. The girls, however, responded with exasperated lectures. We're talking about reality. Reality isn't a novel. The friends descended into a loud, boisterous argument. The atmosphere was so chaotic that no one noticed Leo Wallace suddenly choke on his beer and cough twice. And no one saw Claire Sterling's expression freeze for a split second. Normally, the couple would spend their weekends relaxing comfortably at the LNS house. They'd eat, watch TV, cuddle on the couch, or perhaps conduct some positive new research into the functions of their friendship bed. But with the university track meet approaching, both Leo and Claire had signed up for events. So this weekend, they were at the school's athletic field early in the morning to train. They ran laps together on the track. After finishing a few circuits in the cool morning breeze, steam rising from their bodies, they sat down on the steps to rest and eat breakfast. As they ate, Leo noticed Claire seemed distracted. What are you thinking about? He asked with concern. Claire snapped back to reality and shook her head. Nothing. But even though she said that, when they returned to the LNS house after their morning workout, she saw the business magazine on the coffee table and picked it up again. Her gaze fixed on the silhouette behind David Cheng's photo. She was lost in thought. Leo slipped on his slippers and walked over. He glanced at the magazine in her hands and raised an eyebrow, smiling. What's this? You're interested in the mysterious CSO, too. Claire nodded. She hesitated for a moment, then looked at him. Do you think that people can really be reborn? This time, it was Leo's turn to be stunned. He met her serious gaze and suddenly felt a prickle of guilt. He quickly masked it with a laugh. You actually believe what Leon and Marco were saying? They've been reading too many novels. There's no way something that fantastic could be real. He paused, then added, unless you have some other evidence. It was just a casual question, an attempt to act nonchalant. He didn't expect the question to make Claire flinch. She struggled to keep her expression neutral. No, just asking. The couple stared at each other, eye to eye. Neither could detect anything amiss. Internally, they each let out a quiet sigh of relief or regret. Thank God she doesn't know. Too bad he doesn't understand. The following week proceeded as usual, with one exception. Their daily routine now included morning and evening runs to prepare for the track meet. Leo's workload, however, had become increasingly heavy. On one hand, as Happy Nest continued to grow, its future strategic decisions became more critical. As the chief strategy officer, he was frequently needed at the office for meetings, helping David Chung steer the ship. On the other hand, his own Mako Entertainment and the Battle Through the Heavens browser game project were entering a new, more intense phase. It was time to crunch. Originally, there hadn't been such a rush, but the source novel was rapidly approaching its major climax. The heroes returned to settle a 3-year score. Leo had previously asked the author, Potato, to slow the pacing to align with the game's launch. Lately, Potato had been running out of ways to stall. He sent Leo a message complaining, "I really can't drag this out much longer. Any more delays, and the readers are going to riot." He even attached screenshots from his comment section. Messages like, "Try stalling the plot again," "Author, I dare you," and "Potato, where do you live? I've got some local specialties to send you." All sorts of warm, positive greetings. It was enough to make your hair stand on end. With that, the pressure was on for Leo's browser game. The art department's progress was fine, so he focused more of his energy on Wyatt Way's programming team. He made 2 trips to the new campus each week, spending most of his time communicating with Wyatt. This made the head of the art department, Isabella, feel a sense of crisis. She found every excuse to get near her boss. "Boss, you need to pay attention to me, too. You can't play favorites. The art team needs love. I can even take another pay cut. $30. At this rate, the great Isabella Zhao was on the verge of working for free. Amidst the busy schedule, there was some good news. It came from David Chung on Friday. Nexus had finally responded. They had called David directly, stating that the price Leo had offered was acceptable. Just like that, the deal was done. A full one. $2 million and 5% of the initial shares in Nexus's new microblogging venture. An almost unimaginable, astronomical sum. However, they had another request. Our Mr. Carlson would like to meet with young Mr. Zhou. When David relayed the message, Leo was momentarily confused. Who's Mr. Zhou? David nearly rolled his eyes. Who do you think? It's you. Leo slapped his forehead in realization. All right. Sorry, I forgot. He had too many aliases. It was getting hard to keep them straight. But while he might have trouble remembering his own cover identities, he was very familiar with Nexus's Mr. Carlson. His full name was Carl Carlson, the CEO of Nexus, and later, the chairman of their microblogging platform, a true titan of the internet. He was my old boss back at Nexus. You'd better be careful when you meet him, David advised, still a little worried. Leo just smiled. Don't worry. When it comes to bullshitting, I'm a professional. While Leo had received good news, Claire had run into something less pleasant. Since the Southwest quake disaster had concluded, she had been gradually handing over her responsibilities at Sterling Holdings and stepping back. There were just a few loose ends to tie up. On Friday, she went to the headquarters. After a meeting, she was summoned to the chairman's office on the 37th floor. Her father, Charles Sterling, eagerly stood up from behind his desk to greet his precious daughter, ushering her to a seat. He then fussed over her, pouring tea and asking after her health. This continued until the young woman glanced at her old man and said flatly, "Get to the point." Charles chuckled nervously and sat down. "Well, it's nothing much. It's just that some of the Way family elders from D.C. have come for a visit. They were hoping to see you, talk about a few things." Claire nodded. "No." Her single word completely derailed the entire speech Charles had prepared. He nearly choked. After a long moment, he rubbed his hands together, his face pained. "Our families have been friends for generations. Even if you're not interested in young Wyatt, you could at least meet with his uncles out of respect for them coming all this way. Otherwise, they won't have anything to show for their trip, and they won't let it go." Claire took a small sip of her tea, her expression calm and composed. "They don't need anything to show for it, and if they won't let it go, just have Mr. Zhou handle it." Standing nearby, the former Special Forces soldier, Mr. Zhou, froze. Charles was choked up again, pointing a finger at his daughter with a mix of anger and helplessness. You're a young lady. Why is your first thought always to handle people? It's not appropriate. Handling this, handling that. What happens if I make you unhappy one day? Is Mr. Zhou going to help you handle me, his own boss?" Claire glanced at her father. She said nothing. Then she glanced at the former Special Forces soldier. Mr. Zhou's expression was firm and steady. "Mr. Sterling, you and the young miss can continue your chat. I have to step out for a moment." He turned and walked out the door, his eyes wide and pupils trembling. He needed to hurry up and delete the dozens of texts his young miss had sent him over the past year about handling the big boss. After leaving Sterling Holdings headquarters, Claire took a taxi back to the LNS house. That evening, the couple sat down for dinner at home. Even though Claire had managed to reset her mood to normal the moment she walked in the door, Leo still sensed something was off. Or rather, he could feel that a certain Bertha Sue still had some lingering murderous intent. He asked curiously, "Who made you angry?" Feeling a sense of boyfriend duty, he added with concern, "Want to take it out on something? Reasonable should be back any minute now." A certain fat-headed parrot, who had just returned from Mr. Chin's place after watching a 7-star DVD, was flapping his wings and preparing to enter the house. He happened to overhear his male owner's last sentence. He executed an emergency U-turn in midair and fled for his life. Danger! Danger! The house wasn't safe tonight. He'd go take shelter with his big brother. In response to her boyfriend's concern, Claire just smiled and shook her head. It was just a little problem at work. It's already been resolved. However, although she said that, after dinner, while Leo was in the kitchen washing the dishes, Claire sat alone on the sofa, lost in thought. She replayed the conversation with her father at the headquarters, and her brow furrowed slightly. The Wave family. In her past life, she had faced the same situation. Honestly, she didn't have much of a grudge against her punching bag childhood friend. He had a nice, solid feel to him when she was growing up and needed to hit something, and she knew a little about his family situation, so she could empathize to some extent. The real trouble came from his family. In her past life, it had taken a considerable effort, nearly causing a complete breakdown in relations between the Sterling and Wave families, to finally get that so-called childhood engagement called off. Claire herself wasn't afraid of trouble, nor did she care about the long-standing friendship between the two families. If she had to, she could go through it all again in this lifetime. But there was one crucial difference between this life and the last. This time, she wasn't alone. She had found the person she wanted to spend her life with. At this thought, Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. She wasn't worried about the Wave family causing problems for her, but she would not allow this mess to affect her boyfriend in any way. Therefore, the Wave family issue had to be dealt with, swiftly and decisively. Just then, Leo finished washing the dishes and came out of the kitchen. He suddenly felt a chill in the living room and shivered, looking around in confusion. Is there a draft? Claire's thoughts snapped back to the present. She looked up at her boyfriend and smiled sweetly. A draft? I don't think so. It must be your imagination. You worked so hard, boyfriend. Come sit and rest for a while. Seeing the gentle smile on her face, Leo dismissed his confusion and happily walked over. Coming. I must be overthinking it. My girlfriend is so cute. There's no way something as ominous as a draft could exist in this house. Sitting down next to Claire, Leo conjured a freshly washed apple from behind his back, as if by magic, and handed it to her. Try this. I just bought them today. They're extra sweet. It'll put you in a good mood. Claire was taken aback for a moment. She realized he still remembered her mood from dinner and was trying to comfort her. A warmth spread through her chest. She nodded. Okay. She took the apple and bit into it. Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. It's really sweet. Her gaze fell on Leo, her heart filled with emotion. Such a wonderful boyfriend. All the more reason I can't let him be bothered by some ridiculous family from D.C. My childhood friend may not be entirely at fault, but it's better to just handle him quickly. Achoo. On Monday, in an empty classroom on the new campus, Wyatt Way suddenly sneezed. Leo, who had come to hear a progress report, looked at the head of his programming team with surprise. Catch a cold? The weather's not even cold. Nearby, Isabella Zhao cautiously moved her stool a little farther away from Wyatt. Don't infect me. If I get sick, I won't be able to focus on my work. The dedication of the chosen one of labor was ever increasing. Wyatt waved his hands dismissively. It's not a cold. I think something unclean has been following me lately. I keep getting these chills. Hearing it wasn't a cold, Isabella moved her stool back, her eyes wide with curiosity. Are you possessed? I can introduce you to an exorcist. I met a master over at the park. His skills are profound. The ever-helpful Isabella made her generous offer. Since we're colleagues, I'll only charge you a $200 referral fee. Wyatt sighed. I don't think it's a ghost. But no matter what it is, even the most powerful master can't help. As he spoke, he couldn't help but feel a wave of despair wash over him. He couldn't explain the situation to his boss or his colleague. He could only suffer in silence. He had planned for every contingency, but who the hell could have predicted that his own family would have such incompetent idiots? He had been trying desperately to hide, terrified of being caught by that demoness, Claire. But then his brainless uncles had taken it upon themselves to go to Sterling Holdings and seek her out. They hadn't even given him a heads up. Only after meeting with Charles Sterling did they call him, proudly and confidently reporting the good news. We know you're too shy to make a move, son, so we, your elders, stepped in for you. We've already talked it over with your Uncle Sterling. That Claire girl's opinion? Not important. This marriage is for us elders to decide. You, just wait for the good news. After that phone call, Wyatt felt like his world had collapsed. Wait for good news. How is that any different from waiting to die? His utterly foolish uncles had no idea. But as someone who had grown up with her, he was all too familiar with the demoness nature. This wasn't about using their authority as elders to pressure her. This was about waking a dangerous lioness. His family of morons was pushing him to his death. If it weren't for the fact that he had met his benefactor and boss and was working with him on this project, Wyatt would have already bought a plane ticket and fled the country again. The farther away from that demoness, the better. As Wyatt wrestled with his complicated emotions, Leo, though not knowing what was on his mind, noticed his lack of energy. "Maybe you've been working too hard lately," he said with concern. "Why don't you take a couple of days off? After all, he's not getting paid. I can't exploit him too much." Wyatt snapped back to reality and shook his head vigorously. No, that's not necessary. I'm full of energy. Things have just been a little busy, but I can handle it. I'm even going to the old campus for the track meet this week." He pounded his chest, making a series of solemn promises. Leo was surprised. "You're competing too?" An idea struck him. "That's perfect. When you come over for the meet, you can stop by my place afterwards." Wyatt's eyes lit up. "All right, that would be great. I can finally meet your wife. Bro, would I be lucky enough to have her cook for me?" Leo waved his hand magnanimously. "You don't need luck. You just need to be alive." Hearing the boss invite Wyatt to his house, with the added bonus of a home-cooked meal from the boss's wife, made Isabella Zhao incredibly envious. She wanted to go too. Leo was generous and naturally couldn't be stingy with his #1 employee, so he extended an invitation to her as well. The campus girl was very tempted, but after a moment of hesitation, she shook her head with regret. "I can't. I have so many classes this week, and I have plans this weekend." She had a pass, hoping for another chance next time. Even though it was her own choice, Isabella felt a strong sense of crisis. She sidled up to her boss and reminded him insistently, "Boss, you have to take me next time. I'll definitely be free, and I want the boss's wife to cook too. You can't play favorites." Leo hadn't expected that Bertha Sue's cooking would one day be in such high demand. The employees of Mako Entertainment truly had courage. He readily agreed. The chat ended, and it was time to leave the classroom. Leo called Wyatt to leave with him, as he had a few more work-related details to discuss. This, however, made Isabella anxious again. She rushed out of the classroom after them. "Hey, what are you two whispering about? Why can't I come?" The ever-confused Isabella was now on high alert. Since Wyatt had arrived, she felt like she was losing favor. To make matters worse, Wyatt was gloating. "The bond between me and my bro is special. Isn't it perfectly reasonable for us to have a private chat? Ms. Zhao, you're an outsider, don't butt in. The lights in the classroom are still on. If you have so much energy, why don't you go turn them off?" Isabella's eyes widened in anger. "Who's an outsider? I was here first. I'm not turning off the lights. Why don't you do it?" The Mako Entertainment power struggle, Part 2, had begun. As the boss, Leo had to mediate. Both were his trusted aides, and both needed to be placated. All right, no fighting. Wyatt, you're new here. You need to show some respect for our senior employees." He then turned to soothe Isabella. "And you don't pick fights with a new guy. As the #1 employee, you need to have the magnanimity of a #1 employee. Go on, turn off the classroom lights. The lights you turn off are the darkest." Flattered by the praise, the confused Isabella practically skipped back into the classroom. "Jay, just because you say that doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I just don't want to waste electricity. It's not because I want to turn off the lights." Having successfully distracted Isabella, Leo led Wyatt out of the building. He genuinely had some work matters to go over with the head of his programming team. The coding progress had been excellent lately. Since they were working from the templates of established games on the market, they could quickly create a prototype by making a few adjustments to the gameplay details. Leo planned for Wyatt to connect with Kevin Zhao's testing team once the first version was ready. By leveraging Kevin's team, they could get immediate feedback and polish the final product to perfection before launch. The great Wyatt had no objections to this arrangement and expressed his enthusiastic support. He got Kevin's contact information from Leo. Wyatt then asked casually, "Bro, what's the name of the guy in charge of testing?" Leo was caught off guard. He thought for a moment. "His name is Leo Wallace," he said, "but he likes to joke around. Sometimes he pretends to be me and calls himself Kevin Zhao. Just play along with him." Wyatt was amazed. "Whoa, some people have weird hobbies." Leo waved his hand, his expression unwavering. "It's not important. You don't have to understand it. Just respect it." Wyatt was moved, looking at the man before him with renewed admiration. "You're a true bro, Kevin. That Leo guy is damn lucky to have a friend like you." Back at the old campus that evening, Leo was having dinner with Claire in the dining hall. He casually mentioned that a certain moocher would be visiting their house for the track meet in a couple of days. Hearing that someone was actively requesting her cooking, Claire was delighted. She readily agreed to personally prepare a lavish feast to welcome their guest. But speaking of the track meet, Claire remembered something else. After dinner, she dragged Leo from the school back to the LNS house. On the way, she explained that since she was competing, she needed proper athletic wear. She and her roommates had gone shopping in a mall near the campus a few days ago, but couldn't find anything they liked. So, she had enlisted Mr. Joe's help again. He had gone shopping downtown and was delivering the clothes that evening. When the couple arrived at the LNS house, the former Special Forces soldier was already waiting with bags full of clothes. Leo took the bags and couldn't help but be astonished. For a simple track meet, a certain Bertha Sue had purchased 6 or 7 different athletic outfits to choose from, along with various running shoes to match. And not just for herself, she had also bought several outfits for him. The world of the wealthy was truly different. Feeling bad that Mr. Joe had come all the way from downtown, Leo greeted the ex-soldier and told him to sit and rest while he went to the kitchen to wash some fruit for him. Mr. Joe waved him off with a steady hand. No trouble at all. It's my duty to run errands for the young miss. Whenever she needs me, I'll be there. The ex-soldier's voice was firm and powerful, the epitome of the Sterling family's most trusted retainer. Claire, remembering something else, pulled out her phone. Perfect timing then. I did a photo shoot for the school magazine a while back, a couple shoot. Mr. Joe, could you help me pick the best ones? Mr. Joe laughed heartily and agreed, reaching for the phone. No problem. I'm great at picking photos. Huh? What kind of photos? The ex-soldier's heart stopped for a second. The next moment, he saw the couple's photos on his young Mrs. phone screen. Mr. Joe's world crumbled once more. After the Northwood Gazette, the Berkeley student magazine was now his new mortal enemy. The former Special Forces soldier didn't stay long at the LNS house. With his pupils still trembling, he got up to leave. Bad news always came suddenly, without warning. He had to start researching how to prevent the Berkeley student magazine from circulating. Claire walked Mr. Joe to the door. In the front yard, she stopped and looked at him. Any news on Wyatt the punching bag? At his young Mrs. question, Mr. Joe's expression turned serious, then ashamed. Not yet. I've checked almost every university in the East Bay area. His name isn't on any of the new student or transfer lists. The great retired recon soldier had rarely been stumped by such a small matter. Excluding the possibility that the target was actively seeking death, he had scoured nearly every university besides Berkeley, and he had come up with absolutely nothing. Claire's lips twitched. He's good at hiding. She looked at Mr. Joe. Keep looking. As she spoke, her eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint dancing within them. I refuse to believe. He can hide for the rest of his life. Thursday, the opening of the university track meet. The familiar march of the athletes, the familiar parade of formations on the field. The stirring music failed to rouse the college students who had been dragged to the field for an early morning assembly. One by one, the departmental representative teams made their entrance, each led by a sign-holding young woman who had been meticulously made up for the occasion. And just like that, the sleepiness vanished from every male student's eyes, replaced by a jolt of energy. Holy crap, look at that waist. Those legs. I'm dead. The arts and physical education departments, who had made the trip from a new campus, drew the biggest reactions. The long, lean, and beautifully toned women from the P.E. department and the graceful, pure, and lovely young ladies from the arts department. Their appearance was met with a thunderous roar of cheers and applause. In the advertising program section, Marco Shaw wiped a trickle of blood from his nose, his face filled with emotion. College life is the best. I'm coming back to Berkeley in my next life. Next to him, Dylan nodded vigorously, holding up his whiteboard. And me too. The only disappointment was that the arts department's most famous girl was not among the representatives at the opening ceremony. The 9 out of 10, Isabella Zhao. Still low-key and mysterious. A goddess like that probably doesn't have time for this kind of event, Leon remarked with a sigh. Leo nodded in agreement. True. The great Isabella Zhao was probably cooped up in a studio, covered in paint, frantically trying to meet a deadline. Goddess or not, her work ethic was undeniable. Such a good employee. I'll have to bring her some of Bertha Sue's homemade cookies when I visit the new campus next week. When it was the School of Business's turn to march, students from all departments, especially the freshmen from the new campus, craned their necks to get a look. The fame of the business school's freshman queen had spread throughout Berkeley over the past half year. Still, many had not had the chance to see her in person. Claire Sterling, the ice queen who outshone all the other departmental beauties, the undisputed 10 out of 10 campus goddess. Just how stunning could she be? Unfortunately, the students of Berkeley were destined for disappointment again today. The woman leading the business school's formation was not the great campus queen. Although she was a beauty in her own right, tall and with striking features, according to the residents of room 520, she didn't quite measure up. This level. Never mind comparing her to Sister Bertha. She's not even on Sister Quinn's level. Having spent so much time with the four beauties of room 205, the men of room 520 had developed high standards. Just then, Marco's energy returned. Hey, I heard Sister Quinn and the others all bought new athletic outfits for the track meet. I wonder what they'll look like. Dylan's eyes lit up, and he forgot all about the other beauties marching past. Oh, right. They're definitely going to blow all the other girls out of the water. If nothing else, Quinn Lou's nearly 5'9" frame and stunning, model-esque long legs would be a sight to behold in a pair of running shorts. The image was almost too beautiful to imagine. The men of room 520 turned to Leo, their faces full of curiosity and gossip. Did Sister Bertha get an athletic outfit too? Have you seen it, Leo? Does it look good? Leo, however, was the picture of nonchalance. Oh, I've seen it. It's all right, I guess. It was just a short-sleeved shirt and knee-length shorts, revealing her fair calves. Nothing to write home about. The trio from room 520 listened with a mix of envy and jealousy. Damn it. Do you hear yourself right now? That is not something a human being should say. You have no idea how good you have it. He was admittedly flexing a little. For Leo, the simple nightgowns Bertha Sue wore around the L&S house were far more stunning. Not to mention the time she would come downstairs in the morning, still sleepy and dazed, wearing nothing but one of his oversized button-down shirts. That sight, alluring and breathtakingly beautiful, was simply beyond description. Lost in thought, Leo's mind began to wander. Just then, their advisor, Alex, came bustling over. All right, look alive. Who's participating in the field events this morning? Come sign in with me. He passed by the group from room 520. His eyes fell on Leo, and he did a double take. Whoa, Leo, what's going on with you? Did you eat something potent for breakfast? Wipe your nose. You've got a nosebleed. After the opening ceremony, the morning's events kicked off. The field events were first. Claire's long jump and Jade's high jump were in the afternoon. Of the group from rooms 205 and 520, only Leon and Molly had events in the morning. Men's shot put, men's javelin, and women's shot put. The date cake guy and the novel girl were ready to go. First up was the men's shot put. Leon had already taken off his jacket and was standing by the field in a black tank top. The top, not meant to be tight-fitting, was stretched taut over his powerful muscles, making him look like a human tank. The visual was impressive. A few girls from other departments happened to see him, and their eyes lit up. They changed direction and wandered over to the shot put area to watch. Molly stood in front of her boyfriend, hands on her hips, not pleased. She waved her small hands, trying to shield him from the covetous gazes of these vixens. No looking, he's mine. Marco Shaw also stepped forward righteously. That's right. Our dorm's big boss is taken. Ladies, please retract your claws. Then, as he approached the girls from the other departments, his demeanor changed instantly. He fawned over them, handing out small slips of paper. But don't despair, ladies. The big boss may be taken, but I, the second in command of room 520, am handsome and single. Here's my number. Feel free to call me anytime. We can chat about life, the universe, and everything. Before he could get a single number, a gasp went through the crowd. With a grunt, Leon unleashed his power, hurling the shot put forward. It flew past the best marks of the previous competitors, beating the second-place throw by nearly 15 feet. The crowd gasped in awe. The girls from room 205 jumped up and down, cheering excitedly for Leon. Leo and Claire also applauded. Claire was impressed. He's amazing. Without any professional training, just relying on raw physical strength, he had achieved a result comparable to a P.E. Major. Sterling Holdings Security Department needs someone like this. Leo nodded in agreement. Of course, when you eat homemade date cakes for every meal, you're on a different level. Security department, maybe not. But the culinary department, definitely. In the shot put event, Leon was the fifth to compete, and his first throw immediately put him in the lead. Unfortunately, a P.E. Major specializing in shot put came up after him. Combining strength and technique, his first throw surpassed Leon's. In the next two rounds, Leon gave it his all, but he was still outmatched. He finished in a respectable second place for the group. Even so, it was an excellent result. His classmates from the advertising program gathered around to comfort and encourage him. That was great. The P.E. Majors are professionals. There's no shame in losing to them. Leon himself was still a bit disappointed. As he left the shot put area, he discussed his performance with his roommates. The final consensus: he hadn't eaten enough date cakes. He needed to eat more. The next event was the men's javelin. There were no P.E. majors in this event, so everyone was on a level playing field. The advertising students stood on the sidelines, cheering Leon on. Go, Leon. This group is full of scrubs. You got this. Leon was fired up. With everyone lacking technique, his physical advantage shone through. He was still finding his rhythm on his first throw, which only ranked third, but on his next 2 attempts, he found his groove, launching the javelin over 150 feet. He nearly reached the level of a semi-professional athlete. The crowd erupted in cheers. Their advisor, Alex, nearly jumped for joy, letting out a triumphant roar. Yes, Marco Shaw beamed, looking as if he had won first place himself. Did you see that? That's our guy from room 520. 520 is the best. And the girls from the other departments, who had been drawn in by Leon's explosive muscles, were now looking at him with even brighter eyes, inching closer. So what if he had a girlfriend? They weren't married. A little competition never hurt anyone, right? However, that thought quickly vanished, because the next event was the women's shot put. Another event without any P.E. majors. The novel girl, Molly Tang, made her grand entrance. The adorable Molly stood by the field, looking as if she was struggling to even pick up the shot put. The spectators felt a pang of sympathy. That girl is so cute. What kind of advisor would make her do shot put? I hope she doesn't hurt herself. The next second, they saw Molly stand at the throwing line, take a breath, and with a grunt, effortlessly toss the shot put over 30 feet. Her final result, 41 feet, on par with a semi-professional female athlete. The entire field fell silent. The spectators were dumbfounded. They watched as the cheerful Molly ran over to her boyfriend and roommates, seeking praise. Their entire perception of reality was shattered. What the hell? No. What? The contrast was as jarring as a popular internet meme where a sweet-looking girl shyly says, "This is so embarrassing," and then proceeds to throw a dead body out the window. How could such an adorable girl be so incredibly strong? After cuddling with her boyfriend for a bit, Molly turned and glanced at the group of girls from the other departments. She gave a defiant flex of her fist. The girls flinched and immediately abandoned all thoughts of competition. No, we can't compete with that. The first event of the afternoon was the high jump, and Jade Jiang was competing. The roommates from 205 and 520 came to cheer her on. Before the competition even started, they were stunned by Jade in her athletic wear. It was just a plain, loose-fitting white athletic t-shirt, but on Jade, it was stretched tight, outlining her breathtaking curves. The contrast between her cool, intellectual demeanor, enhanced by her black-framed glasses, and her ridiculously seductive figure left the onlookers speechless. Even Leo did a double-take, impressed. He recalled something Claire had told him before. Of the 4 of us in our dorm, Jade has the best figure. She wasn't lying. Marco's eyes nearly popped out of his head. After a long moment, he turned to his Gotham brother and pleaded, "Dylan, maybe you should reconsider. Get a shot with Jade." Dylan hesitated for a moment. He glanced at Jade in the distance. He shivered and shook his head firmly. The will to survive had won. The high jump competition began. When it was Jade's turn, she stood at the starting line and reviewed a stack of notes and strategies she had prepared. She calmly adjusted her glasses, exuding an aura of scholarly confidence. The spectators were drawn in, and the business students cheered her on. Go, Jade. Go, international finance. The roommates from 205 and 520 were even louder. Go, Jade. Show them the power of a true scholar. Jade took a deep breath, her gaze calm and sharp. She started her run, charging towards a bar. As she neared it, she launched into a graceful Fosbury flop and smoothly sailed under the bar, a good 16 inches below it, like a fish flying through the air. She landed squarely on the soft mat. The air was silent for a moment. The atmosphere suddenly turned frigid. The business students who had been cheering were now completely stunned. The starting height for the women's high jump was 3 feet. Jade's jump height was 1.5 feet. She was a full foot and a half short of the starting height. Jade sat up on the mat, looked at the untouched bar, and turned to the judge. Did I clear it? The judge was so baffled he didn't even know how to respond. Well, she did get past it. From underneath, Claire couldn't help but cover her face. She turned to Leo and whispered, "What if I do badly in the long jump?" The great campus queen, faced with the pressure of a track meet, was uncharacteristically nervous. Leo comforted her. "Don't worry, believe in yourself. You'll be fine." Claire bit her lip, still worried. "What if I don't even make it into the sandpit, and I fall flat on my face?" Leo couldn't help but laugh. Don't be ridiculous. It's not that dramatic. Claire wasn't convinced. What if? Leo thought for a moment. Then it's fine. I'll just say I don't know you. Before he could finish, his girlfriend lunged at him and bit his arm. Jerk. Prepare to die. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After the women's high jump, it was finally time for the much-anticipated women's long jump. The reason for the anticipation was simple. One of the competitors was the freshman queen of Berkeley School of Business. 5 minutes before the event was set to begin, a massive crowd had already formed around the sandpit. More and more students from various departments, having heard the news, were constantly joining the throng. The scene was a cacophony of excited voices. Students craned their necks, looking around. Where's the campus queen? Where's Claire Sterling? Most of the students from a new campus had never seen her in person. They were eager to finally witness the legendary Ice Queen and see how she measured up to the beauties from their own law and arts departments. As for the students from the old campus, they were used to seeing the power couple, holding hands, and being affectionate around school. But today was different. Today was the track meet, and they had heard that the great campus queen would be wearing a special athletic outfit, the Ice Queen Athletic Edition, a limited-time release. It was not to be missed. Amidst the sea of heads, a commotion rippled through the crowd. Here she comes. Everyone turned in unison to look, and there she was, a stunning young woman with her hair pulled back in a high, pure ponytail, her cool, ethereal beauty captivating all who saw her. She wore a red and white short-sleeved athletic shirt, crisp and clean. Below, red athletic shorts revealed her long, fair legs, their smooth skin seeming even more delicate against the bright red fabric, as if a touch would bruise them. A gasp went through the crowd, followed by a wave of murmurs and sighs of admiration. Even the students from the new campus, especially some of the girls who had been skeptical of her title, were momentarily stunned by her beauty. When they recovered, they took a sharp breath. This is just unfair. How could someone actually be that beautiful? Despite the crowd's reaction, Claire, who appeared calm and collected on the surface, was internally battling a storm of nerves. She subconsciously turned to Leo and took his hand. Leo. Feeling her anxiety, Leo smiled and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. It's okay. Just jump. I'll be waiting for you on the other side of the pit. The competition officially began. The first few competitors took their turns, completing their initial jumps. Most of them had no professional experience and had likely been strong-armed into participating by their advisors. Some of the less skilled jumpers didn't even make it to the sandpit. There were, however, 2 P.E. majors who performed with steady, graceful form, landing cleanly in the sand and achieving good scores, earning applause from the crowd. Finally, it was Claire's turn, the 7th in line. The moment she stepped up to the starting line, the crowd erupted in a thunderous cheer. Go Claire! Woo! Her classmates from the advertising program, who had gotten to know her well, joined in with Marco and Leon. Go Sister Bertha! Go for first place! This left students from other departments confused. What? Bertha? Does our school's Ice Queen have a stage name? Sounds kinda badass. Claire couldn't be bothered with her classmates' antics. Standing at the starting line, she took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. Across the sandpit, Leo had taken his position. Oblivious to the stares of others, he waved to his girlfriend. Come on, jump, I'll catch you. This was just shameless public affection. But seeing Leo on the other side of the pit, Claire's anxiety began to fade, replaced by a sense of calm. The formidable CEO of Sterling Holdings from her past life. What hadn't she seen? It was just a long jump. She wouldn't just jump, she would jump well. Her eyes narrowed, her gaze fixed on the far end of the sandpit. She whispered to herself, a form of self-hypnosis, just pretend Sarah Lynn is on the other side. If I jump far enough, I can punch her. The judge standing nearby was momentarily confused. Sarah Lynn? Who's Sarah Lynn? The next second, he saw the young woman's eyes turn sharp. To hell with Sarah Lynn, she pushed off the ground, her powerful strides carrying her down the runway, a blur of motion. 1, 2, 3 steps. In an instant, her foot hit the wooden board at the edge of the pit. She launched herself into the air. Her long, slender body traced a beautiful arc through the air, soaring across several meters. Finally, she landed in the sand with perfect form. Her momentum carried her forward, and just as she was about to tumble, Leo, who was ready and waiting, caught her in his arms. He was both surprised and delighted by her incredible performance. Wow, that was a beautiful jump. Claire looked up from his embrace, a playful smile on her face. Thanks, Sarah Lynn. Leo, wait, what? Who would have thought that a long-gone villain could make such a useful comeback? Thanks to the Sarah Lynn motivation method, Claire's next two jumps were equally impressive. She ultimately took third place, earning a bronze medal behind only the two P.E. majors. Her performance was met with another round of thunderous applause and admiration from the crowd. As expected of the great campus queen, beauty and strength in one package, the students from the law and arts departments on the new campus were convinced. She really was amazing. Impossible to find any fault. The news spread like wildfire on the school forums. The freshman campus queen had made a stunning appearance at the track meet. Her high ponytail and athletic were a sight to behold. She had jumped her way to a bronze medal, and her relationship with a certain handsome young man was on full display. The news reached the new campus. In the art studio, the employees of Mako Entertainment gossiped as they scrolled through their phones, regretting that they couldn't have been there to witness it in person. They were filled with longing for the legendary, athletic campus queen. Isabella Zhao, however, was completely uninterested. She was laser-focused on her work, rushing to meet her deadline. Freshman campus queen? So what? She had already seen the ultimate beauty, the boss's wife. Who cares about some Claire Sterling? She's no Tessa Yuan. Meanwhile, on another side of campus, the great Wyatt Wei had no time for online gossip. He finished his work and excitedly sent a message to his benefactor and boss. Bro, my event is tomorrow afternoon. See you on the track at the old campus. And remember to bring your wife. Friday, the second day of the track meet. This morning featured Quinn Liu in the women's 100-meter dash and Leo in the men's 200-meter dash. There were actually two more events. Marco Shaw and Dylan had both signed up for the men's 110-meter hurdles. They had figured it would be a niche event at Berkeley with little competition, and they might just luck into a medal. The Gotham brothers had miscalculated. The two of them, dressed in their athletic gear, strode confidently to the starting line. They glanced to their left and right, and were stunned to see that their competitors in the neighboring lanes were all decked out in professional red tracksuits and spiked shoes. Their gear, their posture, they looked like they had been cloned from Olympic athletes. Turns out, the men's hurdles was a signature event for Berkeley's P.E. department, and this year's freshman class had over a dozen hurdlers. It was another day of Batman beating the crap out of the Gotham brothers. They finished last and second to last. The other runners had already finished while the two of them were still struggling over the first few hurdles. The girls from room 205, who had come to cheer them on, couldn't bear to watch, covering their faces and turning away in shame. So embarrassing. Who were those guys? Never seen them before. When it was time for the women's 100-meter dash, Quinn Liu stole the show. Tall and long-legged, she was a stunning sight in her breezy athletic wear. Her incredible long legs alone were enough to draw the admiring and lustful gazes of countless onlookers. Marco Shaw's eyes were practically glued to her. Holy crap! Sister Quinn's legs are longer than my will to live. And those long legs were a real advantage. The starting gun fired, and Quinn took off, her long strides eating up the track. Her cadence wasn't the fastest, but each step covered nearly 1.5 times the distance of her competitors. She crossed the finish line in a blaze of glory, taking second place in her group. As she crossed the line, her energy gave out, and her legs buckled. Just as she was about to collapse, Marco Shaw, quick as a flash, rushed forward and caught her. She fell into his arms, her long arms instinctively wrapping around his neck. They were inches apart. The faint, sweet scent of her perfume filled the air. Marco's face flushed, and he quickly let go. Ahem, Sister Quinn, are you okay? Quinn, snapping back to reality, her face also slightly flushed, quickly stepped back, feigning nonchalance. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks. By the time their friends arrived, both of them had composed themselves. Molly rushed over, fussing over Quinn. Quinn, are you okay? I saw you almost fall. Quinn was the picture of composure. I'm fine, thanks to Marco's timely rescue. Marco puffed out his chest righteously. Of course, Sister Quinn and I are practically family, like brother and sister. Quinn threw an arm around Marco's shoulders. Good little brother. I'll treat you to a nice meal later. Marco beamed. Thanks, Sister Quinn. The two of them bantered loudly, and no one else thought anything of it. But Molly wrinkled her nose, a puzzled look on her face. Huh, that's strange. Why do I smell something sweet? The novel girl's shipping radar was going off. Jay Jiang adjusted her glasses, a thoughtful expression on her face as she looked at Marco and Quinn. Her stare made them both uncomfortable. They quickly separated, changing the subject with forced laughter. Hey, let's not dawdle. The men's 200-meter is about to start, right? Let's go cheer for Leo. For the men's 200-meter dash, Leo, now in his athletic gear, stood at the starting line with the other 7 members of his group. Students from various departments gathered on the infield, cheering for their classmates. Before they could get a few cheers in, a clear, pleasant voice drowned them out. Leo. Everyone turned to look and froze. Their own ice queen of Berkeley was holding a ridiculously large and flashy cheers sign, waving it at someone on the starting line as if no one else existed. Go! The sign was familiar. They had seen it at the Humanities Department's basketball game. Below the cheer, the words from his girlfriend were still as bold and eye-catching as ever. The sight nearly broke the hearts of the other runners on the starting line. We're all running the 200-meter. How come he gets this kind of treatment? A volley of envious and jealous glares shot towards Leo. He, however, seemed unfazed. He smiled and waved at his girlfriend on the sidelines, then got into position. The starting gun fired. The cheers and screams from the sidelines erupted. Claire cheered along with them, jumping up and down, her face flushed with excitement, waving the sign with all her might. Onlookers could hardly believe their eyes. Is this really our cool, aloof campus queen? On the track, Leo pushed off the ground and shot forward like an arrow from a bow. His physical condition was already good. In this life, he had made a point to exercise, working out with Leon, enduring Mr. Joe's demonic training, and frequently engaging in positive, friendly sparring with Bertha Sue. Ahem. Anyway, his explosive power was well developed. A 200-meter all-out sprint. He finished in a respectable 3rd place. The top 2 were P.E. majors. There was no shame in losing to them. But the 2 P.E. majors who took 1st and 2nd, initially standing at the finish line with their hands on their hips, looking proud, turn around, and saw their campus queen, her face flushed with excitement, throw herself into the arms of the 3rd-place finisher, hugging him tightly. Leo, that was amazing. 1st and 2nd place. Suddenly, it all felt rather pointless. They walked away dejectedly. I'm out. My mom's calling me home for dinner. In the afternoon, the last events were Leo's 5,000-meter and Claire's 3,000-meter races. First up was the women's 3,000-meter. Unlike yesterday's long jump, there were no P.E. majors in this event. All the competitors were regular students, eager to win. The great CEO, of course, had a competitive spirit, and thanks to her regular training, her stamina and endurance were a cut above the average college student. One breath, 3,000 meters. With Leo, her roommates, and countless spectators cheering her on, she ran a steady race and was the first to cross the finish line. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, and the men watched with envy as the exhausted campus queen threw herself into her boyfriend's arms. Damn it, that's the life. I'll pay $50 to be the one to catch her. A 3,000-meter run is draining. Claire was helped to the steps by Leo to rest. He felt for his girlfriend. He lifted her calves onto his knees and began to massage them. Claire sat on the steps, enjoying her boyfriend's massage service, her eyes closed in contentment. Leo. He looked up. What is it? Claire looked at him, a smile playing on her lips. Did your family want a massage parlor? Your technique is pretty good, Leo. Then he saw the mischievous look on her face and understood. He couldn't help but laugh. You still remember that? Back in their senior year of high school, on the basketball court, after Julian Sue had intentionally undercut him, he had gone to the nurse's office and enjoyed a massage from his girlfriend. At the time, he had, for some reason, said the exact same thing. The tables had turned. A year later, the line was thrown back at him. Claire huffed. A woman's revenge is a dish best served cold. After massaging his girlfriend's legs for a while, it was almost time for the men's 5,000-meter race. Leo told Claire to rest a bit longer and got up to head to the field. On the way, he got a call. It was Wyatt Way. The moment he answered, he was greeted by Wyatt's enthusiastic voice. Bro, I'm at the track, getting ready to line up. Leo was stunned. He hung up and rushed to the starting line for the 5,000-meter, where he was surprised to see a familiar figure on the neighboring lane. Wyatt Way, beaming, greeted him. Bro, surprise. We're in the same event. It turned out Wyatt was representing the mechanical and electrical engineering department, and he had also signed up for the men's 5,000-meter run. Leo laughed. What a coincidence. Well, let's both do our best. Wyatt patted his chest confidently. I've won races in this event overseas. Don't blame me if I don't go easy on you, bro. Oh, by the way, where's your wife? He looked around eagerly. Before Leo could explain, the referee walked over, raised the starting pistol, and announced the start of the race. Then, all the runners took their positions. The starting gun fired, and they were off, like arrows released from a bow. As the men's 5,000-meter began, Claire, having rested and recovered a bit, also got up and walked towards the track. She was still thinking about cheering for her boyfriend. At the same time, on the track, the runners were all pushing hard. Leo, still feeling the effects of his 200-meter sprint that morning, was struggling a bit, falling into the middle of the pack. Wyatt, on the other hand, wasn't just boasting. He was leading the pack in the 5,000-meter running with ease. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps. With 500 meters to go, the second group of runners started to pick up the pace. But Wyatt was still in the lead, on track for a comfortable first-place finish. 200 meters to go. 100 meters. The finish line was just ahead. Wyatt, still in the lead, already had a victorious smile on his face. He even considered looking back to see where his benefactor and boss was. But before he could turn around, his gaze swept across the crowd on the infield. He vaguely saw a familiar figure walking over from the finish line. Their eyes met in midair. Wyatt saw Claire, and Claire saw Wyatt running at the front of the pack. Berkeley track meet. The athletic field. The moment the two childhood friends' eyes met in midair, the girl froze. Then her eyes narrowed sharply. Wyatt froze too. A second later, he snapped back to reality, his soul nearly leaving his body. Holy shit. Talk about being haunted. She hunted me all the way down to the Berkeley track meet. The next second, under the stunned gazes of every runner and spectator on the field, the great Wyatt, who had been leading the race, screeched to a halt, pivoted, and ran in the opposite direction. The sight left the audience utterly bewildered. It even threw off the other runners in the lead pack, causing chaos. Back in the second pack, Leo was still accelerating, trying to catch up. He looked up, completely baffled, to see a certain moocher sprinting towards him in a panic. Bro, I gotta go. See you later. Before Leo could process what was happening, the great Wyatt had already zipped past him and vanished. Leo instinctively kept running forward. And just like that, he overtook the two lead runners who had been thrown off their rhythm. In the end, he was the one who crossed the finish line first. The advertising students at the finish line erupted into a frenzy of cheers and screams. Leo is a god. First place. First place. They swarmed him, celebrating wildly. Leo himself was still completely lost. Wait, what has happened? This counts. Soon, his roommates from both dorms gathered around, congratulating him. Leo, that was awesome. First place. You're the man, Leo. Another win for room 520. Ha ha ha. Leo scratched his head. It was nothing. Just good luck. Honestly, he still hadn't figured out how he'd won first place. Molly noticed Claire standing off to the side. Claire, what are you looking at? Claire, who had been scanning the field, turned back, her expression returning to normal. Oh, nothing. But even as she said it, her gaze drifted back to the direction in which the great Wyatt had fled. Her eyes narrowed again, a dangerous glint in them. Well, well, well. So he's a student at Berkeley. Is this a direct challenge? Her fists clenched, and a chill emanated from her. Marco Shaw and the others shivered, looking around in confusion. Huh? Is there air conditioning on the field? With the track meet over, and it being the weekend, the two dorms decided to have their usual get-together at the LNS house. Leo mentioned to Claire, the moocher is coming over later. You want to try your cooking? Claire paused, remembering her boyfriend had mentioned this before. Her mood finally improved. Okay, I'll cook tonight. The group prepared to leave for the LNS house. They split up, with the roommates heading back to their dorms to shower and change first. Leo and Claire went home to get things ready. As they neared the house, Leo remembered that their kitchen utensils had been broken during their last use, and they needed a new set. He told Claire to go inside, while he went to the nearby supermarket. At the supermarket, he bought 2 kitchen knives. On his way out, he got a call from Wyatt. The great Wyatt sounded like he was still in shock. Bro, I just ran into my demonist childhood friend again. Holy crap, it was terrifying. That woman is relentless. Leo was surprised. What a coincidence. Are you still coming? Wyatt's voice on the other end was firm and heroic. Yes, I have to. Nothing is going to stop me from meeting my sister-in-law today. So Leo gave Wyatt the address to the LNS house. When he got back to the house, he saw Wyatt arriving, waving enthusiastically. Bro, over here. Wyatt trotted up to the gate of the LNS house. He glanced at the wooden sign hanging on the gate and was surprised. Whoa, what's this? LNS. Like, lethal and savage. Bro, you and your wife have a pretty badass name for your house. Leo chuckled. It's all right, I guess. It's your sister-in-law's house. Then he remembered something else. Oh, right, we're out of drinks. I'll go back to the supermarket. Wyatt volunteered. You don't have to do that, bro. I'll go. Leo waved him off. You're the guest. Go on inside and sit down. I'll go. He handed the 2 new kitchen knives to Wyatt. Your sister-in-law is in there getting ready to cook. Can you take these to her? A second ago, Wyatt was ready to go buy drinks. Hearing this, his spirits lifted. Sure thing. You go on, bro. I'll take the knives to my sister-in-law. The two of them parted ways at the gate. The great Wyatt strode happily into the slaughterhouse. He walked in, holding the two knives, looking around and marveling. Wow, my sister-in-law is pretty well off. As he marveled, he remembered to take out his phone and snap a couple of selfies. He'd send them to Isabella Zhao later to show off. See, I got here first. After his selfie session, Wyatt, still holding the knives, headed towards the kitchen, calling out, "Sister-in-law, my bro asked me to bring you the knives. He went out to buy some drinks. He'll be back soon." He entered the kitchen. No one was there. Wyatt glanced at the countertop. A chaotic mess of ingredients was laid out. Even though nothing had been cooked yet, there was an inexplicable, dangerous aura of death. The scene felt strangely familiar. Where have I seen this before? As Wyatt frowned, trying to remember, he heard footsteps coming from upstairs, interrupting his thoughts. His spirits lifted. "Sister-in-law, I brought you the knives." Claire, having heard the noise downstairs, was heading towards the kitchen. As she approached, she frowned. The moocher's voice sounded familiar. Her fists clenched again. But she continued walking toward the kitchen, calling out politely, "Okay, thank you." Wyatt also thought her voice sounded familiar. But he turned to hand her the knives, his voice still enthusiastic. "Don't mention it. It's my pleasure." As he finished speaking, Claire walked into the kitchen. Wyatt, having turned to grab the knives, handed them to her. Then he looked up with anticipation. Claire took the knives, and naturally looked up. In the small kitchen, the two childhood friends' eyes met. The air went still. Then it solidified. Dead silence. Wyatt was dumbfounded. His brain short-circuited. The top-tier intellect of the Wei family's eldest son worked furiously, finally piecing together the cause and effect. Wyatt's eyes went wide. He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Your name is Tessie Yuan now, right?" Claire was stunned for a long moment. Then, as if waking from a dream, she burst out laughing. "So you're the moocher." Wyatt felt every cell in his body screaming in alarm. He forced a strained smile, sweat beading on his forehead. Haha, what a coincidence." Claire also smiled. Yes, a real coincidence. As she smiled, she reached back and closed the kitchen door. Then she raised a knife. Leo returned from the nearby supermarket with the drinks. On his way back to the LNS house, he ran into his roommates from both dorms at the entrance to the complex. They all walked in together. As they walked, Marco Shaw casually asked, "By the way, where's Sister Bertha?" Leo replied, just as casually, "She's at home, getting ready to cook." His words instantly stunned the chattering, laughing group into silence. Their steps faltered. Their faces changed. They looked like they were about to bolt. "You know what? I think I have something to do today. Let's skip the get-together this week. We'll do it next time." Luckily, Leo stopped them in time. No, it's fine. She's only cooking for the new guest. I'm making dinner for us." The group collectively breathed a sigh of relief and continued walking. Marco Shaw, still shaken, clutched his chest. "Holy crap. Leo, you should have said that sooner. You scared the hell out of me. Oh, by the way, who's the new guest?" Leo explained that it was a new friend of his, an employee from a startup who had come all the way from the new campus specifically to taste Bertha Sue's cooking. The roommates were impressed. Wow, someone's that fearless. Badass. They chatted as they walked, and as they were about to enter the front yard of the LNS house, they heard a loud crash from inside, followed by faint, desperate screams. Molly, who had the sharpest hearing, looked puzzled. "Hey, what was that sound?" Marco also pricked up his ears. "It sounds like someone screaming for help." Leo was also confused. He walked through the front yard to the door and called out, "Claire." He unlocked the door and pushed it open. The door opened. The first thing to emerge was Reasonable, flapping his wings frantically, the fat-headed parrot looking utterly traumatized. Death! Death! He shot past his male owner and the group of roommates, a feathered blur of terror. He was clearly suffering from some major psychological trauma. He flew out the door to find his big brother. It would take at least a few 7- or 8-star DVDs to calm him down. Leo was even more baffled. He looked inside. The living room was empty and tidy, with no signs of struggle. "Claire!" He called out again as he walked in. Finally, the kitchen door slid open, and Claire, wearing an apron and casual home clothes, emerged. She was holding a kitchen knife. Seeing Leo, she smiled sweetly. "You're back." Her tone was calm and natural. Not a hair on her head was out of place. It was as if nothing had happened. Marco, Quinn, and the others followed Leo inside. Seeing the serene Claire, they were taken aback. "Sister Bertha, are you okay? We thought we heard a loud noise." Claire casually brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Really? I didn't hear anything. It probably came from next door. As she spoke, she nonchalantly nudged a fallen vase under the sofa with her foot. The group was still puzzled. Next door? But we definitely heard someone scream for help as we were walking up. Claire's expression didn't change. You must have misheard. As she spoke, she subtly kicked a wine glass, sending it rolling into a corner. Leo looked around and then remembered. Oh, right. Where's Wyatt? I told him to come in and give you the knives. Claire's expression was one of sudden realization. Oh, he was just in the kitchen helping me. I'll call him out. She turned towards the kitchen and called out, Wyatt, come say hi. Her voice was friendly, with no trace of anything unusual. Under the watchful eyes of the group, a figure emerged from the kitchen. Wyatt Way appeared, a sunny smile on his face, holding a potato in one hand and a peeler in the other. He greeted Leo enthusiastically. Bro, you're back. The girls from room 205's eyes lit up when they saw him. Wow, he's kind of cute. Leo, is this the employee from your startup? Marco, Dylan, and Leon also marveled. He's pretty handsome, only a little less handsome than us. Leo, seeing the vegetables and peeler in his star employee's hands, felt a little bad. You're the guest. You shouldn't be helping in the kitchen. Put that down and come relax in the living room. Wyatt's eyes lit up with joy. Well, if you insist, bro, I couldn't possibly refuse. Before he could finish, Claire, standing nearby, let out a soft, nonchalant cough. She casually lifted the knife, seeming to admire it. Wyatt flinched. The next second, he quickly changed his tune with a laugh. But then again, I can't sit still. While I'm a guest at someone's house, I just love to help out. Your wife is cooking. It's only right that I lend a hand. Haha. Claire also smiled sweetly at Leo. Wyatt and I really hit it off. We were just in the kitchen chatting it up. We had a great time. Leo was surprised. He turned to Wyatt. Really, to get such high praise from his girlfriend was a rare honor. The last person to receive Bertha Sue's personal seal of approval was the legendary, multi-talented Mr. Chien. This Wyatt guy had that kind of charm? Wyatt beamed. Yeah. We hit it off so well. It's like we were enemies in a past life. Soulmates. Soulmates. Huh. Claire smiled at her boyfriend. All right, you guys go relax. I'm going to take Wyatt into the kitchen to cook. She turned to Wyatt, her voice gracious. Wyatt, after you. Wyatt was equally charming, his posture impeccable. After you, sister-in-law. Claire turned gracefully and, holding the knife, walked into the kitchen. Wyatt followed her calmly. Even from behind, he carried himself with the grace of a young master from a wealthy family, except perhaps for a slight limp in his step, as if he had sprained his ankle during a desperate escape for his life. The L&S house. The two groups of roommates sat on the living room couch. The kitchen door was closed, but the clanging of pots and pans, punctuated by the occasional muffled explosion, was clearly audible. It was a familiar symphony of death. Marco and the guys looked pale, shifting restlessly on their seats. They kept turning to Leo, needing constant reassurance. Leo, you're still cooking later, right? Dude, we really can't let Bertha Sue be in charge of the entire dinner tonight. After Leo confirmed that he would, indeed, be taking over, they all breathed a collective sigh of relief. Marco couldn't help but glance toward the kitchen again, hissing in disbelief. So, this Wyatt Way guy, he asked Bertha Sue to cook for him, a private meal, and he's in there helping her, and he's going to wait for her to finish and then eat it with his own mouth? Quinn Lu sucked in a sharp breath. How is that any different from mixing your own poison and then drinking it yourself? Jay Jiang adjusted her glasses and shook her head with a sigh. He's so handsome. Why does he want to die so badly? Leo glanced toward the kitchen himself, a little worried. Mainly, he was thinking that Mako Entertainment had just landed this valuable, free employee, and he'd rather the kid not die an untimely death in his house. He got up and headed to the kitchen to check on the situation. Just as he reached the door, it swung open. Claire emerged, holding a platter. Leo was surprised. You're done? Claire gave her boyfriend a small smile. Why it was a big help, saved me a lot of effort. She lifted the platter toward Leo. Want to try some? Leo's eyes instinctively darted to the masterpiece on his girlfriend's platter. His pupils contracted in an earthquake of horror before he tore his gaze away, his expression calm and steady. No, thanks, he said. Wyatt worked so hard. Let's save it all for him. The ruthless capitalist had a conscience, but not a very big one. If a valuable employee had to be sacrificed, so be it. He could always find a new one. Her boyfriend had politely declined, but Chef Sue didn't press the issue, happily accepting his suggestion. She carried the platter with a light step over to the dining table. Leo entered the kitchen. He looked up and saw Wyatt coughing amidst a choking cloud of smoke, miserably trying to clean up the disaster zone. Leo asked with concern, "Wyatt, you okay?" Wyatt waved a hand weakly, still coughing. "I'm not dead yet." After finishing with the pots, Wyatt straightened up and turned to Leo, his face a mess of conflicting emotions. "Bro," he began, his voice thick with grievance and a hint of accusation. "You should have told me your girlfriend's name wasn't Tessa Yuan. If I had known the truth," he thought, "you couldn't have paid me $1 million to walk straight into this death trap." Leo looked a little sheepish. "Oh, so you know now? Did she tell you?" Wyatt was speechless. "She didn't have to. I could tell it wasn't her." Did he really need to be told after growing up with her? The face of Claire the Demoness was burned into his nightmares so vividly he could recognize her from a pile of ash. Wyatt then shot Leo a wounded look. "So the name Kevin Zhao was fake, too?" "There's no Kevin Zhao." Leo kindly corrected him. "Actually, he does exist." Before he could finish, Wyatt cut him off with a pained wave of his hand. "Bro, don't lie to me anymore. I knew it. Who in their right mind would have a dumb name like Kevin Zhao?" Miles away in Portland, a certain someone sneezed for no reason. A kitchen that had been used by Chef Sue always looked like it had been hit by an artillery strike. Leo expertly began cleaning up the battlefield, preparing to cook a real meal. Wyatt stayed to help him. As they worked, he couldn't stop himself from glancing at Leo. Then he glanced again, and again. Claire had warned him to keep their childhood friendship and the arranged marriage a secret from Leo. But now Wyatt couldn't hold back. He asked carefully, "Bro, how did you and Claire the demon? I mean, how did you and your girlfriend get together?" Heaven help him. He never, in his wildest dreams, thought he'd live to see the day a human T-Rex like Claire Sterling actually had a boyfriend. Leo answered casually while scrubbing a pot. "Ow, there wasn't much to it. Just a bit of coincidence and a whole lot of what's perfectly reasonable." Coincidence and reasonable. A question mark appeared over Wyatt's head. What the hell did that mean? He didn't get it, but he pressed on undeterred. "What did you see in your girlfriend? Shouldn't any normal human being stay at least 200 miles away from a terrifying creature like Claire Sterling?" That question actually made Leo pause. He thought for a moment, then a grin spread across his face. "Oh, a lot of things. She's gentle, kind, smart, generous, thoughtful, understanding. All that stuff." He rattled off a list of his girlfriend's virtues without a second thought. It was enough to leave Wyatt completely stunned. Gentle? Kind? Thoughtful? Those are some seriously obscure adjectives. Are we even talking about the same Claire Sterling? Where does she even come close to any of those things? Wyatt subconsciously rubbed his rear, still feeling the phantom pain. Claire's knife threat had been a bluff, but the kicks to his ass had been very, very real. It still hurt. Hesitantly, Wyatt asked again, "Bro, have you lost your mind?" That made Leo laugh. "What do you mean, lost my mind? I'm telling you the truth. You just haven't spent enough time with her. You'll see it once you get to know her better." Wyatt was speechless, his heart filled with sorrow. "Bro, it's because I've spent too much time with her that I'm asking." After listing his girlfriend's merits, Leo added one more. "Of course, she's also gorgeous." Then, as if remembering something, he turned to Wyatt with a casual smile. "By the way, you have that childhood friend from the arranged marriage, right? Isn't she supposed to be gorgeous, too? Between her and my girlfriend, who's prettier?" Wyatt felt the air leave his lungs. He was silent for a long moment before finally forcing out a complicated response. "About the same. It's impossible to say who's better." After a flurry of activity in the kitchen, Leo and Wyatt began bringing out platters of fragrant, delicious food. The aroma filled the living room. The two groups of roommates cheered in relief. "Thank God, it's Leo's cooking. We're saved." Then, remembering themselves, they quickly turned to Claire with placating smiles. "Claire, what you made was great too, but maybe it's better suited for the Queen of England." The Queen of England would not be so fortunate tonight. Chef Sue's culinary masterpiece was reserved entirely for Wyatt Way. At the dining table, everyone watched as Wyatt, with a look of grim determination, battled the delicacy on his plate. As he ate, he forced a smile that looked more painful than sob, and gave Chef Sue a thumbs up. "So good. You're amazing, sis-in-law." Everyone else at the table was dumbfounded. "Holy shit, a true warrior. Mr. Chen has a successor." Marco, Dylan, and Leon suddenly felt a jolt of alarm. "This is bad. If this keeps up, is our spot in the best man lineup going to get pushed back again?" It was rare for the LNS house to have a new guest. Both groups of roommates were incredibly curious about Wyatt Way. If nothing else, the fact that he could eat an entire plate of the single slaughterhouse hostess's cooking without batting an eye was enough to earn their deepest respect. though, after finishing, Wyatt did look like he was on the verge of death. Leon kindly passed him a few of the homemade date cakes. Here, eat some of these. You'll feel better. The girls, meanwhile, were looking Wyatt up and down with admiration. He was handsome, with a distinguished air, to maintain his composure while eating Chef Sue's death cuisine. That was truly remarkable. Molly's eyes sparkled. He's just like one of those noble young masters from a powerful family in a romance novel. Then she looked at Claire, who was sitting across from him, and gasped. Claire has that same kind of aura. Hey, if you two were in a novel, I feel like you'd actually be a pretty good match. Before she could finish, Wyatt's hand trembled so hard his chopsticks nearly fell. A cold sweat broke out across his entire body. Please don't joke around, miss. This is my sister-in-law. We can't be matched. That's just wrong. Claire shot Molly a look. Molly, you've been reading too many novels lately. Your feelings are off. Don't feel things anymore. Her voice was light, but carried a chilling undertone. Molly shivered and quickly retracted her head. Oh, you're right. I was just talking nonsense. I don't even like those kinds of novels. Quinn turned to Wyatt, her interest piqued. So, Wyatt, you just got back to the country? You went abroad in middle school? Why'd you go so young? Wyatt elegantly set down his bowl and chopsticks and began to speak with effortless charm. It was nothing really. I just always wanted to get out and see the world, broaden my horizons, experience the wonders of different places. His words earned another round of praise from the table. But Leo, who was eating next to him, casually interjected. That's not right. I remember you telling me a different story. Wyatt's face stiffened. The others, however, were intrigued. They all turned to Leo. What did he say? Is there gossip? Claire also leisurely set down her utensils and cast a light glance at Wyatt, who was now squirming in his seat. Then she smiled at Leo. Is that so? Do tell. Oblivious to his valuable employee frantically trying to signal him, Leo cheerfully shared the story. He told me the first time we met. He said he fled the country to escape a disaster. Otherwise, he would have been handled by his terrifying demoness of a childhood friend. Wyatt's face turned green. He blurted out, wait a minute. I never said demoness. Leo slapped his forehead. Oh, right. I think you said human T-Rex. Wyatt fell silent. He shakily turned to look at Claire and forced a smile that was uglier than tears. Sis-in-law, I really didn't say that. Claire's expression was serene. It's okay. I'm not your T-Rex of a childhood friend. Why are you explaining it to me? With that, she flashed a grin at Wyatt, revealing a row of perfectly white teeth. That friend of yours hold a grudge. That has nothing to do with me, of course. Right? Wyatt felt his life was in even greater peril. Regardless of Wyatt's inner turmoil, the others at the table were hooked by Leo's story. Childhood friends, arranged marriage, everyone's eyes lit up. More gossip. Molly was so excited her eyes were practically glowing. Wow, the plots for my novels are real. Tell us more. Tell us more. Spill the details. She deftly swiped a handful of date cakes from her boyfriend's pocket and eagerly offered them to Wyatt as a bribe. Wyatt's expression was rigid. He glanced at Leo, then at Claire. What was he supposed to say? Claire smiled sweetly. Just tell the truth. I'm curious too. As she spoke, she nonchalantly fiddled with her steak knife. With a sharp crack, she sliced the head off a small, dried fish on her plate. Wyatt flinched. He suddenly felt a strong kinship with that fish. Unable to resist the group's burning curiosity, Wyatt's mind raced. Steeling himself, he began his story. It's really nothing. We just grew up together, and our parents had the brilliant idea of setting up an arranged marriage. He gave them the short version, passionately insisting that his childhood friend was beautiful, elegant, and flawless, the kind of person anyone would fall for. As for himself, while he held her in the highest regard, he would never dare to have any improper thoughts about her. It's not that she isn't good enough, he concluded firmly. It's that I'm not worthy of her. The roommates listened, stunned. That sounds a little over the top, doesn't it? Quinn said, amazed. Is there really such a perfect girl in the world? Marco nodded vigorously in agreement. I thought our Bertha Sue was already perfect. Wyatt, the way you describe her. This childhood friend sounds even more incredible than Bertha Sue. Wyatt wiped sweat from his brow and chuckled nervously. Ah, you think so. They're about on par, I suppose. Jade studied Wyatt. She's such a great girl, and you're engaged. And you're not a bad catch yourself. You really don't want to give it a shot. Molly had been completely engrossed in the story. Now, she chimed in with strong support. Yeah, from what I heard, you two sound perfect for each other. Why don't you try Wyatt? Be bold and go for it. Her words sparked a chorus of agreement. Even Dylan held up his whiteboard with a +1 scrawled on it. The support was overwhelming. Even Claire, propping her chin on her hand, looked at Wyatt with a half-smile. That's right. Why not give it a try? Wyatt struggled to maintain his composure, feeling like his eyes were about to shatter. No. I think I'd rather stay alive all by myself. The by myself wasn't the important part. The live was. Leo, sitting beside Claire, chimed in, agreeing with his girlfriend. Actually, I also think you and your childhood friend seem like a good match. Before he could finish, Claire's hand shot out and pinched his ear. You're not allowed to say that. Leo winced. Why can't I? Okay, I won't say it. Easy. Watching his boss and benefactor suffer, Wyatt felt a deep sense of empathy and sighed internally. See, that's the price you pay for dating Claire, the demoness. Why would anyone sign up for this? But in the next second, after letting go, Claire looked concerned. Does it hurt? A kiss will make it better. Then, under Wyatt's nearly petrified gaze, she leaned over and gave her boyfriend a comforting peck on the cheek. Wyatt's jaw dropped. In that instant, he was utterly thunderstruck. Holy crap, am I seeing things? Claire the demoness actually has a gentle side. It was a magnificent dinner. Aside from Wyatt, who was emotionally and physically scarred, everyone had a wonderful time. With their stomachs full, the group expertly relocated to the living room couch, bringing their beers and sodas with them for round two. As they settled in to drink and chat, Claire naturally sat down right next to Leo. She'd had a little to drink and seemed slightly tipsy, leaning comfortably into her boyfriend's arms. Leo, just as naturally, wrapped an arm around her slim waist. This scene was nothing new to the roommates. After so many trips to the single slaughterhouse, their tolerance for PDA had leveled up. Only Wyatt looked like his eyeballs were about to pop out of his head. Holy shit, this is insane. Claire the demoness can actually look like a sweet, docile woman curled up in a man's arms. And it's been more than 10 seconds, and the man is still alive. Wyatt couldn't believe his eyes. He turned and whispered to Marco, "Did you see that? They're hugging." Marco glanced over at the power couple and shrugged. "Yeah, I see it. What's a hug? Those two are usually glued together at the mouth." Wyatt was floored. What kind of barbaric language is that? What does glued together at the mouth even mean? Is that something that can happen to the demoness of the Sterling family? Just then, Claire seemed to whisper something to Leo. He nodded, got up, went upstairs to their bedroom, and came back with a hair tie for her. She raised an eyebrow and turned slightly, silently asking him to help. Leo took the hair tie and expertly gathered his girlfriend's hair, pulling it back into a ponytail. Claire turned back around, took out a compact mirror, and inspected his work. She nodded in satisfaction. Then she beckoned to her boyfriend with a playful finger. When he leaned in, she threw her arms around his neck, pulled him close, and planted a kiss on his lips. The other roommates, who were busy drinking and talking, glanced over. No one paid it any mind. They just continued their own conversations. Marco, acting like a seasoned veteran, explained it to Wyatt. That's called thank you. It's a way of expressing gratitude. That is called thank you. Wyatt was so shocked his mouth formed a perfect O. He felt like his entire perception of reality had just been shattered. He'd grown up with Claire the demoness. Since when was she this polite? And isn't thank you something you say with your mouth? Why was it a full-on, wet kiss? Leon leaned over and kindly handed the newcomer a date cake to calm his nerves. They're the Slaughterhouse CP. A kiss for thank you is perfectly reasonable. Everyone from Northwood High is like that. Wyatt was baffled again. He felt his brain, once a powerful machine, was now running on a single core processor that was about to overheat. Northwood High? What does Northwood High have to do with any of this? Marco slapped his forehead. Oh, right, you don't know about that. He rolled up his sleeves with gusto. Come, let me educate you on the ways of the Northwood custom. After a few beers, everyone was a little buzzed, and the atmosphere in the living room grew even more lively. One of the great things about the LNS house was the variety of entertainment options. There were cards, a pool table, a big screen TV for movies that felt like a private theater, and even a friendship vibrating bed. Oh, that last one wasn't open to the public. It was for the exclusive use of the master and mistress of the single slaughterhouse. Wyatt had just been educated by Marco on the so-called rule of reasonableness and the Northwood custom. His eyes were still reeling from a shock. He finally understood what Mr. Chin had meant by the Sterling family's veteran bodyguard possessing an ocular power. If you followed this couple around every day, you'd develop an ocular power too. Leo, who wasn't interested in pool, pulled 2 decks of cards from a coffee table drawer. Anyone for cards? Claire's hand shot up. Count her in. But the moment Bertha Sue raised her hand, everyone else immediately lost interest. Playing cards with the goddess of gambling was suicide. They all firmly declined. No, we're going to play pool. Just drinking is fun, too. Leo looked at Dylan and Marco, trying to persuade them. We're 2 cards short of full deck without you guys. The 2 brothers from Gotham rolled their eyes and got up to leave. Dude, do you hear yourself? Leon, let's go. Back to Gotham. With no one else to play, Wyatt looked around and raised his hand. I'll play. Molly leaned in to offer a friendly warning. Claire's really good at cards. Wyatt smiled with supreme confidence. No problem. I hone my skills playing cards abroad. They call me the god of gamblers of London's Chinatown. The god of gamblers of London's Chinatown wasn't just bragging. At first, it was just Leo and Wyatt playing blackjack. Leo was a decent player himself, usually winning more than he lost against his roommates in room 520. But against Wyatt, he lost 6 or 7 hands in a row and had to drink quite a bit. The onlookers were impressed. Well, Wyatt's got some skills. Wyatt beamed, though he feigned modesty. Not at all, not at all. Just a little party trick. Then Claire got annoyed. One was a childhood friend she'd known for less than 20 years. The other was her dear boyfriend. It was an easy choice. She had to stand up for her man. She raised an eyebrow. My turn. Claire the Demoness versus Wyatt the punching bag. They each drew 2 cards. Claire had 14. She asked for another card and got a 10, busting with 24. Everyone sighed. Bust. Wyatt was triumphant. My apologies, sis-in-law. My apologies, ha-ha. His laughter slowly died down as he felt Bertha Sue's icy glare. He swallowed hard and changed his tune without missing a beat. Oh, but then again, the cards probably weren't shuffled well. This hand doesn't count. Let's redo it. Everyone else. Second round. Claire got 2 9s for 18. But Wyatt drew a perfect 21. The crowd gasped. Damn, what luck. Claire's expression was calm. She just looked at Wyatt without saying a word. Sweat beaded on Wyatt's forehead. Oh, actually, according to international rules, 2 9s for 18 can beat a 21. So this round should go to sis-in-law. Everyone else. Third round. Claire revealed her hand. 13. She stared at her childhood friend without blinking. Stare. JPG. Wyatt trembled as he looked at his own hand. Another perfect 21. He grimly placed his cards face down on the table. No need to look. I busted. He looked up at Claire, his smile looking more like a grimace. Sis-in-law, your skills are truly incredible. Claire smiled back, her expression warm and friendly. You let me win. You let me win. The roommates watched, completely bewildered. What? What just happened? Leo, watching Wyatt resign himself to his fate and chug the penalty drink, was also a little surprised. He nudged his girlfriend. Wyatt seems a little scared of you. Claire looked completely innocent. How could that be? I'm so gentle. It's probably just respect for the boss's wife. Leo looked at his guileless girlfriend, thought for a moment, and nodded approvingly. Perfectly reasonable. The night grew deeper, the party livelier. The living room of the L&S house was still filled with the sounds of laughter and competitive drinking. After 3 or 4 beers, Wyatt seemed to be drunk. He staggered to his feet, saying he needed some fresh air in the front yard. Leo, concerned, followed him out. Then he decided to go to the kitchen to make him some honey water. The ruthless capitalist was having a moment of conscience. Wyatt was so moved he could barely speak. He drunkenly clung to his benefactor's leg, swearing an oath to the heavens. Bro, you're too good to me. Don't worry, from now on, you're my real brother. I'll do whatever you say. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He told Wyatt to wait in the yard and went back inside. Wyatt squatted on the ground, swaying his head back and forth. Footsteps approached from behind, followed by a girl's light voice. All right, stop faking it. Wyatt shook his head, stood up, and turned around. Claire was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, looking at him. A kid who could drink half a bottle of his family's liquor in the 5th grade. This is nothing to you. Wyatt scratched his head awkwardly. All right, I forgot you were here. He smiled, all traces of drunkenness vanishing. He glanced toward the kitchen. Benefactor bro, seems like a good guy. Claire's gaze followed his. Her eyes fell on Leo, making the honey water. A soft smile graced her lips, full of contentment and pride. Of course, he's my man. The night was clear, the moon bright, and the stars sparse. The occasional chirp of cicadas broke the silence in the yard. The 2 who had grown up as childhood friends stood in the night, one leaning casually against the door, the other resting against the swing set, making idle conversation. Wyatt's gaze rested on Claire, filled with a sense of wonder. I never thought I'd see the day you, Claire Sterling, would actually fall for a man. Claire's eyes were still fixed on the figure in the kitchen. A soft warmth filled them. Before I met him, neither did I. At that moment, the bright moon broke through the clouds, its silver light pouring down, bathing the girl at the door of the L&S house in a quiet, ethereal glow. It illuminated her stunning features. Her cool, brilliant aura, combined with the gentle warmth in her eyes and the faint, happy smile on her lips, was so beautiful it seemed unreal, a dreamlike vision. Even Wyatt, who had known her his whole life, was momentarily stunned. He had never seen her like this. This woman, who he thought was so cold and proud that no one could ever touch her, had fallen in love. And with that aloofness stripped away, her radiant beauty was even more breathtaking. Wyatt couldn't help but suck in a breath. You really like him that much? Claire thought for a moment, then gently shook her head. No, it's not like. She turned her head slightly, her gaze once again finding her boyfriend in the kitchen. She looked at him with an intense seriousness, as if solemnly reaffirming her own heart. Then she smiled, giving an answer that left her friend completely thunderstruck. It's more than like. I love him. In the kitchen, Leo seemed to sense her gaze and turned to look at her. Their eyes met across the distance. He smiled and waved, pointing to the honey water he was making to show he was busy. Claire smiled back and waved, then blew him a kiss without a care for who was watching. Leo expertly reached out and snatched the kiss from the air, then stuffed it into his pocket and gave her a thumbs up, as if to say, "Got it, I'll save it for later." The small game made them both laugh. Even from a distance, their interaction was intimate and warm. As the sole witness, Wyatt watched this scene quietly, his heart touched. He felt a mix of complexity, wistfulness, and relief. After a moment, he spoke. You know, the marriage proposal from the Way family wasn't my idea. Claire pulled her gaze back and looked at him, nodding. Yeah, I know. Wyatt added seriously. I'm happy to see you happy. Claire smiled faintly. I know that too. Of course she knew. In her past life, to reject that engagement, she had nearly caused an irreparable rift between the Sterling and Way families. In the end, it was the man standing before her who had stepped up. With an unyielding and resolute stance, he had suppressed the dissenting opinions within the Way family, though he had paid a significant price for it. Back then, the man who was poised to take over the Way family had shared a drink with her in the Sky Lounge on the 43rd floor of the Way Group building in D.C. Standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the vast sea of city lights, his expression had been calm. He had said only one thing to her. Being born into the Way family, my life was never going to be a happy one. There was no need to drag you down with me. Her thoughts returned to the present. Claire looked up at her friend, her eyes soft. I know you have your own difficulties. Wyatt looked utterly confused. Wait, you know that, and you were still dead set on getting rid of me. Claire's expression instantly returned to one of cool indifference. If I got rid of you, then neither of us would have to be in a difficult position. It's perfectly reasonable. Wyatt was speechless. What the hell? Is that something a human being says? So this is the real Claire the Demoness. A leopard never changes its spots. I was almost fooled by her just now. Though his childhood friend was ruthless, Wyatt was still a loyal companion. He thought for a moment and gave Claire a reminder. I'm staying out of this mess myself. I can try to hold off the rest of the Way family, but I can't guarantee I can stop them. Claire nodded, as if she had expected this. But then she shook her head, her tone calm and light. I don't need you to. I'll handle it. Just stay out of the way when the time comes. A question mark appeared over Wyatt's head. Stay. Out of the way. What did that mean? Out of the way of what? Claire glanced at him, patiently explaining for once. So you don't get splattered with blood. Wyatt's pupils contracted. He instinctively took 2 steps back, putting some distance between himself and the Demoness. She was terrifying. How could someone with such a fatally beautiful face say such horrifying things? Could anyone really date this woman? But as much as he complained internally, Wyatt didn't doubt her words for a second. He knew her capabilities all too well. He offered a moment of silent prayer for his relatives. No, wait. Why was he praying for them? Those old bastards deserved whatever was coming to them. He should buy some fireworks to celebrate. Then another thought occurred to him. He looked up at Claire again. It's not just my family. What about yours? Claire's expression remained composed. You don't need to worry about that, either. I'll handle it. Wyatt's face darkened. Seriously, can't you change your catchphrase after all these years? It's always handle this, handle that. Does your dad know you're dating someone? What if he objects? Are you going to handle him too? Claire raised an eyebrow, but didn't answer. Wyatt was confused. Claire remained silent, her face calm as she looked up at the sky, as if her silence said it all. The realization dawned on Wyatt, and his jaw dropped in shock. The well-traveled young master of the Way family felt a tidal wave of astonishment crash over him. Holy shit, that's filial piety for you. Utterly, epically filial. Suddenly, he didn't feel so bad about his own lot in life. Look at how her own father was treated. That night, everyone had a wonderful time. As the party wound down, Wyatt, once again pretending to be drunk, tightly gripped Leo's hand and shook it vigorously, his voice full of emotion. Bro, I'll never forget your kindness. You and sis-in-law must stay together. Forever and ever. He looked so relieved, as if he were handing off a ticking time bomb, terrified it might be sent back his way. Leo chuckled. Sure. And I wish you... He paused, as if remembering something, and smiled at Wyatt. I won't wish you success with your arranged marriage. Otherwise, our wishes would conflict. Wyatt froze. He even forgot to keep up his drunken act, staring at Leo in stunned disbelief. Bro, you knew. He had put on an act all night, half truth, half lie. He thought it was seamless, but he had been seen through after all. Wyatt stared at Leo, utterly astonished. Leo just smiled, his tone casual. I guessed. I'm not an idiot. He wasn't a genuinely naive 19-year-old college student. With the experience of a man who had lived another life, he could easily decipher the silent exchanges between the two childhood friends, the easy rapport they shared from a lifetime of familiarity. For example, when Claire had casually raised her hand earlier, Wyatt had instinctively dodged, moving a full 10 feet away. He had clearly been beaten up a lot as a kid. Wyatt scratched his head, both embarrassed and confused. Then why didn't you say anything? Leo shrugged. Just because you see through something doesn't mean you have to call it out. As he spoke, he glanced back toward the house. The two groups of roommates were cleaning up the living room, getting ready to leave. Claire, playing the hostess, was coming out with them, offering 2 bags of homemade cookies for them to take back to their dorms. The friends' faces turned a sickly green. They forced smiles and, sweating profusely, vehemently refused. No, something this delicious should be saved for Leo. I saw Wyatt had a good appetite earlier. Claire, you should give them to him. In the yard, Wyatt's face turned green, too. He instinctively started to back away. Leo watched his girlfriend earnestly trying to push her cookies on them and couldn't help but smile. Look at her. Isn't she adorable? Wyatt was dumbfounded. Adorable? Bro, are you listening to yourself? This isn't adorable. This is a smiling assassin trying to take us all out. Wyatt turned, wanted to confirm one last time if his boss and benefactor had truly lost his mind. But what he saw was the undisguised warmth in Leo's smile, as if his eyes saw nothing but her. Wyatt paused, and then he sighed. So this is what they mean by beauty is in the eye of the beholder. As he was silently grumbling, he heard Leo's voice again. She kept it a secret because she didn't want me to feel insecure or pressured. Leo turned to Wyatt and asked, a girlfriend this great. Where else could you find one? His gaze drifted back to the house, his eyes reflecting her image. So I pretend I don't know. I don't want to betray her good intentions. The yard was quiet, bathed in the gentle moonlight that fell upon Leo. He stood tall and relaxed, his tone calm, yet he possessed an air of casual confidence. There was no anger or blame upon learning the truth, no urgent insecurity of a man confronting a love rival. There was only calm understanding, unconditional trust. He was even considering things from his girlfriend's perspective. Wyatt stared at Leo, deeply moved by his words. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with genuine admiration. Bro, I'm truly impressed. A man like you really does deserve her. The heir of the Wei family grinned and extended his hand. Let's start over. Wei family of D.C. 3rd generation. Wyatt Wei. Leo smiled and shook his hand. Mako Entertainment, Kevin Zhao. Oh, my mistake, Leo Wallace Leo. Seeing the dark look on Wyatt's face, he corrected himself without blushing. Force of habit, force of habit. The two men shook hands and then broke into laughter. Bro, don't worry. Me and the Demoness are just childhood friends. There's nothing between us. Yeah, I know. She has high standards. She wouldn't be interested in anyone but me. Dude, how can you be so cocky? And for the record, I'm the one not interested in her, okay? If I wanted to, I could just crook my little finger. Oh, in that case, I'll let her know. Go ahead, give it a try. Bro, I was wrong. Spare my miserable life. You were wrong. Wrong. How will you make it up to me? From now on, whatever you say goes. I'll go through fire and water for you. All right, then you can take those 2 bags of cookies with you later. Bro, maybe you should just kill me instead. After seeing everyone off, only the young couple remained at the gate of the LNS house. Leo wrapped an arm around his girlfriend's waist. Claire naturally leaned in, tilting her head up to look at him. What were you and Wyatt talking about just now? Leo smiled. Nothing much, just that he wanted to try some of your homemade cookies, and that we're a perfect match, made for each other, and that he's eternally grateful to me for taking you off his hands. Claire nodded approvingly at the first few sentences, but the last one made her freeze. She stared at him, stunned. You know? Leo smiled and nodded. For once, Claire Sterling seemed at a loss. I didn't mean to hide it from you. Caught off guard, she was so anxious to explain that her face flushed red. Seeing her in such a flustered state, Leo didn't give her the chance. He leaned down and pressed his lips against hers, silencing her words. He kissed her until she was breathless before finally pulling away. He looked at her again, gently squeezing her reddened cheek. No need to explain. I know, but Leo paused, his tone gentle. From now on, you can have a little more faith in your boyfriend. When things happen, you don't have to carry it all by yourself. His words were calm, but they resonated with confidence. Claire looked at him, her eyes shining, and nodded firmly. Okay, I believe you. Yes, anyone else in the world could doubt that promise, but she would believe it, because no one knew better than her what incredible resolve and power lay beneath the calm surface of the young man before her. Enough to brave any storm. Enough to stand unflinching in the face of death to protect the one he loved. He was the best partner, the warmest, most reliable harbor. The girl stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around his neck, and initiated another kiss. A long moment passed before they parted. Claire buried her face in his shoulder and whispered an apology in his ear. I'm sorry. Leo smiled and ruffled her hair. As long as you know you were wrong, don't let it happen again. Claire closed her eyes, enjoying the feeling, and murmured a soft. Then, as if a thought occurred to her, she offered a helpful suggestion. If you think Wyatt the punching bag is an eyesore, I can handle him for you. When all was said and done, handling someone was always the simplest solution, the straightforward philosophy of Claire Sterling. Leo was amused. No need, no need. We finally found a free intern. If I got rid of him, it would be my loss, right? But Claire frowned. A free intern? Isn't that a bit much? He is my childhood friend of over a decade, after all. Leo paused. Oh, you're right. Maybe I should give him a salary. Before he could finish, Claire continued. A childhood friend of over a decade. We can't let him off that easily. She thought for a moment and came to a decision. He's rich anyway. Let's make him pay to work. Leo sucked in a breath. Isn't that a little too cruel? A second later, he nodded decisively. That's my girl. We'll do it your way. It was early summer. On Saturday morning, the first rays of sunlight cut through the increasingly hot air and streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the L&S house. It was a day off. The master and mistress of the singles slaughterhouse slept in. It was nearly 10 o'clock before they were awakened by the mournful cries of a certain starving parrot in the living room. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. The master of the house descended slowly, one hand on the railing, the other rubbing his aching back. Yesterday, a certain Bertha Sue had made a mistake. He had fully intended to punish her for it when they got back to their room. In the end, it seemed he was the one who had been punished. Soon, the mistress of the house followed him down. Compared to her partner, she was full of energy and looked refreshed, though she too was walking a bit gingerly. She glanced at her boyfriend, who was leaning against the wall for support. A smirk tugged at her lips. Leo Hammer, Wallace was not pleased. He shot her a look. What's so funny? Claire instantly wiped the smile off her face, blinking innocently. I'm not laughing. Leo put on a stern face. Have you learned your lesson? Claire stifled a laugh and nodded seriously. Lesson learned, lesson learned. She paused, a sly smile returning as her eyes swept over him. But I don't think I've learned it quite enough. Care to teach me some more? Her voice was soft and teasing, and combined with her smoldering gaze, it was a lethal blow. Leo shivered, subconsciously shielding his kidneys. He cleared his throat and declared righteously, seeing as your attitude is sincere, we'll let it slide for today. But next time, there will be no mercy. Claire blinked innocently. If there's a next time, how many times will you show no mercy? Before Leo could answer, the parrot in the cage couldn't take it anymore. It flapped its wings and let out a weak, pitiful squawk. Stop driving, start serving. The mistress was full, but Reasonable was still hungry. It was a typical morning at the L&S house. The mistress fed her stupid bird. The master went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Before long, the aroma of cooking wafted out, filling the living room. The young couple sat at the dining table, eating peacefully and discussing their plans for the weekend. Finals were approaching. The top priority was studying. After breakfast, Leo and Claire cleared the dishes, brought their textbooks to the dining table, and sat across from each other, deep in review. They knew how to have fun, but they took their exams seriously. After all, they had been the valedictorian and salutatorian of Northwood High. When they focused on studying, they got into the zone immediately, The atmosphere in the LNS house became intensely academic. Even Reasonable the parrot, who had just been fed and was about to turn on Animal Planet for some entertainment, was silenced by a single, cool glance from his mistress. He shivered, then obediently used the remote to change the channel to a poetry program and began reciting along with the show. After an hour of studying, Leo got up to stretch his stiff muscles. He asked Claire if she was thirsty and went to the kitchen to get them some orange juice. When he came back, he saw her at the table, head bowed, completely absorbed in her textbook. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, revealing the delicate profile of her face. Her eyes were lowered, her long lashes trembling slightly, her expression one of deep concentration. Leo smiled silently. He took the camera from a nearby shelf, aimed the lens at his girlfriend, and framed her studious pose. Then he called out, "Claire." At the table, Claire instinctively tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and looked up. "HM." In that instant, Leo pressed the shutter. With a soft click, the moment was captured. He looked at the photo. In the frame, the girl was looking directly at the camera, her clear eyes filled with a hint of question. Sunlight streamed in from the side, casting a soft, rainbow-hued halo around her. Leo smiled, satisfied. "It's nothing. Just taking a picture of you." Claire realized what had happened and looked both annoyed and amused. "You could have warned me. What if it came out bad?" Leo puffed out his chest. "With my skills? Not a chance." He walked back to the table, camera in hand. Claire leaned over, intrigued. "Let me see." She looked at the photo and raised an eyebrow, a hint of satisfaction in her expression. "Not bad." Leo took credit. "Of course. It's all about the photographer's skill." Claire arched an eyebrow. "Clearly, it's because the model is beautiful." Leo stroked his chin. "It's mostly the photographer. The model is just okay." "Ouch. I was wrong. The photographer is terrible. It's all the model's doing." Boys in love. They always had to push it to be a little bit of a smartass. It was like they weren't comfortable unless their girlfriend gave them a little smack. But Leo's photo gave Claire an idea. At lunchtime, while Leo was cooking, Bertha Sue followed him into the kitchen with the camera. She proceeded to take shot after shot of Chef Leo. And she didn't just take pictures. She constantly directed him, telling him to strike various poses for the camera. When they had done the photo shoot for the University Journal, Leo had been a bit camera shy in front of everyone. But with just the two of them at home, he was much more relaxed. Still, Bertha Sue's demands were endless and grew increasingly difficult. "Toss the food in the pan. Can you chop faster? It would be best if the potato shreds could fly into the pot on their own as you cut them." Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Bertha Sue, I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how cooking works." Claire was unapologetic. "That's how the chefs on TV do it." Leo was stunned. "What TV show is that ridiculous?" Claire answered without a second thought. "Iron Chef." Leo was speechless. Now he understood. The reason Chef Sue's cooking was so fantastical was because she learned it all from anime and TV. Iron Chef had a lot to answer for. After a great deal of commotion, Chef Leo had only managed to cook 3 dishes. Photographer Sue, however, had taken over 20 photos. As they sat down at the table for lunch, Claire didn't even bother picking up her chopsticks. She was engrossed in the camera, admiring her photographic masterpieces. Leo couldn't help but laugh. He gently tapped her plate with his chopsticks. "Stop looking. Eat first." Claire didn't even look up, her eyes glued to the camera's memory card. "Just a little longer." Leo puffed out his chest. "The real deal is sitting right in front of you. Why look at pictures when you can look at me?" Claire continued admiring the photos. "The one in the picture is better looking." Leo was confused. Did I just get insulted? His competitive spirit flared up. "Let me see. What is this blasphemy? I'm going to see for myself." He leaned over and glanced at the camera screen. Even he was surprised. Whoa, that's not bad. He had to admit, Bertha Sue's photography skills were light years ahead of her cooking skills. The photos captured Chef Leo from various angles, some in profile, some from behind, but they all made him look handsome or warm, perfectly showcasing his culinary expertise. You could almost feel the gentle, mature aura of a family man just by looking at the screen. Claire was pleased with herself. "I take good pictures, right?" Leo nodded in admiration. "They're great." Then he added, patting himself on the back, "Of course, it's mainly because the model is so handsome." Claire glanced at her boyfriend and corrected him objectively. "It's because the photographer is skilled. I made a pig look like a prince." Leo was speechless. "Wait a minute. I just complimented you on how good you looked as a model. This is how you repay me." After admiring the photos for a while, the couple finally put the camera aside and started eating. But even as she ate, Claire couldn't help glancing at the camera screen every few bites, as if the pictures themselves were an appetizer. A smile would spread across her face each time, clearly pleased with her work. Suddenly, inspiration struck. She turned to her boyfriend. What if I post them online? Leo was taking a sip of soup and nearly choked. After catching his breath, he looked at her, bewildered. What? Post them online? Thank God the pictures were decent. Otherwise, that sentence could have been easily misinterpreted. But what did she mean, post them online? To a student forum with the title, Young College Man Seeks Wife? Or maybe Homely Young Man with Excellent Cooking Skills Seeks Partner? Leo subconsciously looked down at his own 19-year-old body, still wearing the apron from cooking. He had to admit, he looked like prime bait for some mature, lonely housewives. After a moment of self-admiration, he gently tried to reason with his girlfriend. Bertha Sue, we can't do anything illegal. After being together for so long, he knew exactly what she was thinking. Claire rolled her eyes, half annoyed, half amused. What are you thinking about? I mean, we could post them on Happy Nest as a record of our life together. Leo paused, then slapped his forehead. Oh, that's what you meant. He had completely forgotten. Happy Nest user growth had recently stabilized, with a solid base of over 60 million users. The company, led by him and David Chung, had decided to start shifting the website's focus from a simple gaming platform offering titles like Garden Grab, Brainiac Blitz, and the Name Compatibility Test, to a full-fledged social networking site. In the short term, their target competitor was MyCampus. In the long term, they planned to preempt Nexus and claim the half of the internet that Weibo would one day dominate. As the company's chief strategy officer, Leo had drawn up the plan. David Chung had approved it instantly. The transition was already underway. Happy Nest now had various social features, encouraging users to post daily updates, photos, and even videos, complete with comments, reposts, and likes. However, since the new strategy had just been implemented, users hadn't yet developed the habit of using Happy Nest to document their lives. In fact, neither had Leo or Claire. Although they had both registered accounts when Garden Grab launched, they had only used them to play games, harvest crops, or beat up on kids in a trivia game. They had never posted any actual content. As a partner in Seed So, Leo felt it was his duty to lead by example. So, when his girlfriend explained, he nodded without hesitation. Sure, post them. Then he asked, your account or mine? Claire thought for a moment. Let's create a new account, for both of us to use. Leo was taken aback, then he grinned. A couple's account, huh? Sounds good to me. In his past life, couple accounts were everywhere, not just on Weibo, but on TikTok too, racking up millions of followers. He never understood why so many people loved to watch them. They didn't have a relationship of their own, so they just got their fix from watching others. Thinking of this, he looked at his girlfriend with new admiration. He never realized Bertha Sue had such a forward-thinking grasp of the internet. She was almost on his level as a reincarnator. They got to work immediately. The former CEO of Sterling Holdings was nothing if not decisive. After agreeing on the plan, she brought the laptop over from the study, went to Happy Nest, and registered a new account. Choosing a name was a bit of a challenge. What should they call it? Reasonable? Coincidence? Slaughterhouse? LNS? Northwood Deskmates? How about Kevin Zhao and Tessie Yuan? Leo suggested, a straight face. He still hadn't kicked the habit of using aliases. Claire stomped on his foot, mercilessly vetoing the idea. The couple had so many inside jokes from the past year, it was hard to choose. In the end, it was the parrot who helped them decide. He flew over to see what was going on and squawked loudly. Reasonable. Reasonable. That settled it. All right, the reasonable couple it is. With the account name, the reasonable couple decided they needed a profile picture. This time, it wasn't a problem. The couple exchanged a look, and their eyes landed on the parrot perched on the dining table. Reasonable blinked his big, dark eyes, completely clueless. Squawk. A flurry of chaos and squawking ensued. Soon, the picture was taken, uploaded, and the profile was updated. Above the name, The Reasonable Couple, the avatar was a close-up shot of a chubby, blue-gray parrot with its head shoved toward the camera, eyes wide. It was surprisingly cute. Next was the bio. Leo took the laptop, and his fingers flew across the keyboard. He hit enter with a satisfying smack. Done. The bio was now a long string of text. Welcome, you found the masters of the single slaughterhouse, the Northwood representatives, the friendship deskmates, the PDA distributors, Mr. Reasonable and Miss Coincidence, Leo Hammer, and Bertha Sue's official couple account. He had crammed every single inside joke in there. No space wasted. Claire couldn't help but laugh. One account, So many personalities. With the profile set up, Claire took the laptop back and posted their first status update. Every coincidence is perfectly reasonable. She looked at her boyfriend, raising an eyebrow for his approval. Leo nodded enthusiastically. Perfectly reasonable. He then used the mouse to pin the status to the top of their page. Next was uploading the photos. Claire carefully went through the 20-plus shots and chose a profile shot of Leo cooking, showing only half of his handsome face. You could tell he was good-looking, but you couldn't be sure it was him. Leo was puzzled. Why not a full-face shot? Claire raised an eyebrow, her tone matter-of-fact. The full-face ones are too handsome. Some vixen might get ideas. Bertha Sue, with her territorial skills maxed out. As she spoke, she uploaded the photo with the caption, "My husband, Leo Hammer." Her words gave Leo an idea. She's right. With his devastatingly good looks, posting his face online could cause a public frenzy. By the same token, he wasn't about to let other people ogle Bertha Sue's angelic face either. Just the thought of it felt like losing a piece of himself. Leo scrolled through the camera's photos and found one he had taken of Claire reading on the couch. In the picture, she was engrossed in her book, most of her face hidden by the pages and her dark hair, but the sliver of her face that was visible still couldn't conceal her ethereal beauty. This one, Leo declared. He uploaded it as their third status update, captioning it, "My wife, Bertha Sue." The posts were perfectly symmetrical, a matching pair. The couple's account was officially complete. Claire nodded in satisfaction. "We'll share this account. From now on, we can post about our daily life here." Leo had no objections and even had a new idea. "We should get our parents to sign up and follow us. They're always asking how we're doing whenever we call. This way, they can see our updates every day and be happy." Claire's eyes lit up. Great idea. Her sense of duty as the Wallace family's daughter-in-law kicked in. If it was just for them, they could post whatever they wanted. But if her in-laws were going to be watching, then they had to put in a little more effort. Wait a second. She shot up and padded upstairs. When she returned, she was carefully holding the jade bangle her in-laws had given her, which she kept in a safe. She spread a soft cloth on the table, placed the bangle on it, and took a dozen photos. After selecting the best one, she uploaded it to their account with the caption, "An heirloom bangle for Mom and Dad. My favorite gift." Leo couldn't help but protest. "I thought you said the gold slaughterhouse ring I gave you was your favorite gift." Claire shot him a look. "That was just to make you happy. I'm the world's best daughter-in-law." She waved him away like a fly and added a sweet smiling emoji and a heart to the end of her caption. Leo watched her meticulously craft the post and had to admire her. What in-laws wouldn't adore a daughter-in-law like this? His own status in the family hierarchy was probably doomed to be at the bottom for the foreseeable future. Creating the Happy Nest account was like getting a fun new toy for Claire. She was completely engrossed. After lunch, she didn't even rest, grabbing the camera and taking pictures of everything in the house. The Blackie the Leo Hammer doll, the red thread of Destiny bracelets, the slaughterhouse ring. She lined them all up and photographed them one by one. When she was done with the items, she put the bracelet and ring back on and took selfies, focusing on her wrist and neck. She even took pictures cuddling the doll. She posted them all to their new account, one after another, tirelessly. When she saw Leo washing dishes in the kitchen, her eyes even landed on the parrot, contemplating making Reasonable her personal photographer. These days, it wasn't easy to earn your keep at the single slaughterhouse. Even the birds had to be multi-talented. In the afternoon, the roommates from room 205 and 520 came over to study. They walked into the bizarre sight of the mistress of the house directing her parrot in a photo shoot. Poor Reasonable was perched on the coffee table, miserably stomping on the camera's shutter button with its little claws. Everyone froze. They wondered if their eyes were deceiving them. The vibe in the single slaughterhouse was getting weirder and weirder. The girls asked Claire what was going on. After she explained, they all gasped. A couple's account. Wait, this whole house isn't big enough for you two? You have to spread your PDA across the entire internet now? A global slaughter? Grumbling aside, the power couple's new venture gave their friends a brilliant idea. All right, so that's how you can use Happy Nest. It wasn't just a gaming platform. It could be used for social networking. Before college, most students only used AIM and maybe wrote a few posts on their AIM profile. Now, there was a whole new world. In the last couple of years, My Campus had become the dominant social network for college students. Happy Nest, which had only launched 3 months ago, lacked the history of a giant like My Campus, but it had its advantages. Through its viral games, it had quickly amassed a huge user base, establishing a strong foothold among college students. It was just that everyone was used to using it for gaming, not socializing. After Leo and Claire's demonstration, everyone was intrigued. Molly's eyes lit up first. A couple's account. That sounds so sweet. She immediately turned to her boyfriend, bouncing with excitement. Let's make one too. Leon, of course, had no objections, just nodding with a good-natured smile. He was even starting to think about how he could use his own personal account to promote his family's date cakes. It made sense for the date cake guy and the novel girl to have a couple's account. But Marco and Quinn were also inspired. Their eyes lit up simultaneously. We can totally build up our personal accounts. Practically 80% of Berkeley is on Happy Nest now. I already added a ton of friends from playing Garden Grab. You can't see what your friends look like in the game, but on a social platform, you can see their pictures and chat them up. Brilliant idea. The two Casanovas looked at each other, grinned, and high-fived. Good luck, Quinn. You too, Marco. In a way, they were a perfect match. A terrifyingly perfect match. Even Dylan was tempted. On Happy Nest, talking to girls wouldn't be a problem. He wasn't good at much, but as the officially crowned Hokage of the pending Village Hope School, his typing speed was second to none. As for Jade, while her friends were chattering excitedly, she adjusted her glasses and calmly stated, I'm already using it. The Brainiac Blitz game on Happy Nest lets you create your own quizzes. I use it to make a survey for my market research assignment this semester. I just sent it to all my Happy Nest friends and got it done. It's pretty useful. The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone stared at Jade in shock. Holy shit, you can do that. Even Leo was impressed. He looked at Jade like she was a priceless treasure. This kind of talent. I have to recruit her. Over the weekend, the two dorms spent most of their time at the LNS house studying for finals. During their breaks, they were all busy setting up their Happy Nest accounts. Once they were done, they started messaging all their friends, asking for follows, comments, and likes to boost their popularity. College students in this era were simple and easily amused. Give them something fun to do, and they would swarm to it. Soon, the trend of using Happy Nest for social networking spread through small circles at Berkeley. The girls from room 205, already well-known beauties on campus, just had to post a few pretty selfies to attract a flood of followers. The visitor counts on their homepages skyrocketed. Quinn, in particular, posted one picture of her long legs and got over 1,000 unique visitors to her page in a single day. The post itself got over 3,000 views. It was enough to make even Jade consider it. Her next survey required a lot of participants. So, the ever-rational Jade began to calculate whether she, too, should post a slightly more provocative photo to attract some traffic. She didn't have the legs for it, but she had other assets. She even seriously discussed with her friends what level of risque was acceptable on Happy Nest. Leo, sweating, had to quickly intervene. They couldn't let things go down that path. It was a wholesome website, and it needed to stay that way. Still, Leo saw a familiar marketing opportunity, the power of beautiful women. He had used it to promote Garden Grab when the site first launched. Now he could do it again. The chief strategy officer of Happy Nest personally took action once more. He sent text messages to Lily Liu and Isabella Zhao. Come hang out on the Happy Nest social platform. It's fun. Post some selfies. Let's get this party started. Lily, the girl of the humanities department, was already good friends with everyone in room 205 and 520. When she heard what they were up to, she joined without hesitation. She posted a few selfies, and half the guys in the humanities department flooded the site to follow, like, and comment. Isabella, whose mind was solely on making money, wasn't very interested. I'm not really into social media, and I'm busy working overtime this week. Leo sent another message, $100. Isabella replied instantly. 200? For 200, I'll post 2 selfies. Leo agreed readily. Deal. Whatever he paid her, she just put back into Garden Grab anyway. It was just moving money from one pocket to the other. With it, girls from various departments all posting selfies on Happy Nest, a new trend swept through Berkeley. Everyone was eagerly joining in. The commotion even reached David Chung at Happy Nest headquarters. He called Leo. What's going on at Berkeley? Why is everyone suddenly using the social features this weekend? The activity level is through the roof. What trick did you pull this time? Leo was calm. The old trick, the beauty effect. After a brief explanation, David Chung slapped his thigh. That makes sense. We can scale this up. It can't be limited to just Berkeley. We need to hit all the colleges in the East Bay, at least. Leo smiled. I was thinking the same thing, and we can do more than that. It's time to spice things up. Spice things up. Just thought of it, Leo said. There's a perfect opportunity coming up soon. He had heard about it from Marco while they were studying. On June 18th, the following weekend, the first annual East Bay University Comic and Anime Fest was scheduled to be held at the City Stadium. David Chung was a man of action. After confirming the new marketing plan with Leo over the phone, Happy Nest launched a promotional event that very evening. Every user on the platform received an internal message announcing the Campus All-Stars feature, designed to boost user activity. College students could participate by posting their best photos on their personal Happy Nest accounts and entering them into a vote. Each university would have a male and female winner, each receiving prizes from Happy Nest, including rare S-Class items for Garden Grab, a month of unlimited uses for the name compatibility test, and an honorary profile frame for Brainiac Blitz. It was basically a campus beauty pageant. The best part was, it cost Happy Nest nothing. The prizes were all virtual. While the rewards themselves weren't a huge draw for college students, the sheer fun of it was irresistible. A campus beauty contest? It was too entertaining to pass up. Most students were just there to vote and enjoy the show. But those who were genuinely confident in their looks had a bit of vanity. They didn't care about the prizes, but winning the official title on a massively popular platform like Happy Nest was a bragging right. The moment the event was announced, it set off a new wave of excitement across college campuses nationwide. Students who had any confidence in their appearance carefully selected their best photos and posted them. Publicly, they'd say something like, "Oh, this? Just posting some pictures to document my life." Privately, they were frantically messaging all their friends to vote for them. At Berkeley, the various department girls and campus heartthrobs were no exception. Many eagerly jumped into the fray. Others, like Chloe Cheen from the law school and Tanya Tang from the tourism department, weren't initially interested but were peer pressured by their friends into posting photos and joining the battle. With all the campus beauties participating, the male population of Berkeley was in heaven. These were the girls they could usually only admire from afar. Now, they had all posted pictures on Happy Nest, each one more high definition than the last, each one more beautiful. They had seen Chloe Cheen in her casual clothes, but on her profile, she posted a picture in a sharp lawyer's suit. She looked incredible. "Sister, you're killing me." Not to be outdone, Tanya Tang posted a picture from her professional class in a flight attendant uniform. Another wave of Berkeley wolves stared, their eyes wide. Hannah Chu from the athletics department also posted a selfie. She was wearing a simple, standard-issue tracksuit, but her long, toned legs. The comments section under her post exploded. "Holy shit. Those legs are longer than my entire life. Hannah, you are my goddess." There were too many pictures to see, a dazzling array of campus beauties competing for attention. It was 2008, an era before the internet was saturated with an endless stream of influencers on Instagram and TikTok. Back then, this was a rare treat. Happy Nest Campus Beauty Contest had once again gone viral. It wasn't just existing users, either. A flood of new users flocked to the site. "What's this? Hundreds of campus beauties are competing on Happy Nest. Let me see." The site's user registration numbers surged once again, stunning their competitors in the social media space, who could only watch with envy and jealousy. What kind of brain does the person running Happy Nest have? How do they keep coming up with these things? While their rivals seethed, the internet was grateful. "Thank you, Happy Nest. Thank you, David Chung. You are a true philanthropist." This June became the happiest summer for countless college students. At Berkeley, in the dorms, on the way to class, in the lecture halls, even in the dining hall, students were glued to their phones and laptops, excitedly scrolling through Happy Nest. The guys in room 520 were no exception. In the men's dorm, room 520, Marco sat at his desk, staring at his phone, his eyes practically glowing as he scrolled through photo after photo of Berkeley's campus beauties. "This one's good, this one's good too. Whoa, this one's even better." He liked every single one, then sighed with satisfaction. This must be what it felt like to be an ancient emperor choosing his concubines. He got no response. He turned to the desk next to him. "Dylan, what are you doing?" Dylan was furiously typing on his laptop without looking up. "Voting for Jenny from the engineering department. If you vote and leave a 200-word comment, it counts as 2 votes. After a flurry of keystrokes, he finally looked up, his eyes shining. "Jenny sent me a message. She asked me for help specifically. She's into me." Marco was impressed. He gave Dylan a thumbs up. "Nice. You're the man, Dylan." Then he boasted, "Funny you should mention that. I got messages from 2 girls yesterday, one from athletics and one from law, both asking me to vote for them. They used to barely reply to me. Now, they're writing me these long messages. The things they said, I'd be embarrassed to even show you." Dylan gave Marco a thumbs up. "Nice. They're into you too." The two of them exchanged a round of commercial compliments, then happily went back to liking, voting, and commenting for their respective girls. On the top bunk, Leo looked at the 2 diligent brothers from Gotham. He thought for a moment, then decided it was kinder not to tell them the truth. Fun fact, Happy Nest has a mass messaging feature. Just then, Leon, on the bottom bunk, let out a gasp of disbelief. "You guys see this? The girl from the arts department, Isabella Zhao. She actually posted a photo and is asking for votes. Leon's shout made Marco and Dylan abandon their critical task of voting for girls in the contest. They shot up from their desks and scrambled over to Leon's station. For real? Let me see. They crowded around Leon's laptop, and when they saw the screen, the eyes of both Gotham City residents went wide. Holy shit, it's really Isabella Zhao. Dylan was completely stunned. So. He couldn't even get the word beautiful out. Usually, the kid only froze up when he saw a girl in person. Now, a single photograph was enough to trigger his silent mode. It was a testament to the devastating power of the arts department's girl. Marco was staring, his eyes glazed over. Damn, he breathed. She's an actual angel. A 9 out of 10, no joke. The reputation is well-deserved. He turned to Leo, who was on the top bunk next to them, and started waving him overexcitedly. Leo, you gotta come see this. She's a freaking angel. Leo was too lazy to get out of bed. You guys go ahead, I'll pass. But he couldn't resist the intense peer pressure from his 3 roommates. Finally, Leo slowly shuffled to the edge of his bed, leaned over the safety rail, and looked down upside down at Leon's screen. In the photo, sunlight streamed into the new campus art studio. A girl in a simple school uniform sat before an easel, brush in hand, completely absorbed in her painting. Her hair was casually tied back, and a smudge of watercolor was on her cheek, but it did nothing to detract from her exquisite face. If anything, it added an air of effortless grace. The afternoon sun cast a hazy, golden glow around her. She was serene and gentle, poised and at peace, as if she existed in her own little world, untouched by everything else. Leo glanced at it for a second, then pulled his head back up. She's all right. The trio below looked up, utterly shocked. What was that? All right. Marco looked at him with profound disappointment, launching into a passionate lecture. Leo, can you speak with a shred of decency? A girl like that is just all right. What? Have you dated a goddess or something? He stopped mid-sentence. It dawned on him. Marco's shoulders slumped in defeat. Right? You actually have. So what if your girlfriend is the 10 out of 10 campus queen? Is that such a big deal? Yeah, it really is. Leon and Dylan were still glued to the screen, unable to look away. The legend is true. That face, that vibe. She's going to destroy the competition, isn't she? I can't believe it. Isabella Zhao actually entered. Marco slapped his thigh. She must have decided she couldn't stand it anymore. All those other department girls have been making noise, but none of them could really uphold the arts department's reputation as the top department for beauties at Berkeley. Now that Isabella's in the game, she's here to carry the flag for her people. Leon and Dylan nodded emphatically, their faces filled with admiration. That makes sense. That's our Isabella. That's department pride. Such noble character. From the top bunk, Leo casually tossed in a comment. It's not that dramatic. She's just in it for the prizes. His 3 roommates shot him a collective eye roll. Keep making stuff up, Leo. She's Isabella Zhao. What does she possibly want for her? You think she cares about some dinky prize from Happy Nest, right? She comes out of nowhere to post one picture, and you're telling me it's for a monthly membership to the name compatibility test? Or an honorary avatar frame for Brainiac Blitz? Leo helpfully corrected them. It's for the S-tier reward item in Garden Grab. The first place winner for the school gets 10 bags of special grade fertilizer in Garden Grab. Yesterday afternoon, in the art studio on the new campus, when Isabella had shared this news with Leo, her entire face was glowing. She'd pumped a fist at her boss, her declaration brimming with heroic purpose. First place is mine. For the fertilizer. Isabella had zero interest in showing off online. Initially, she had only posted a couple of photos on her Happy Nest account because Leo had promised her $200. The moment the money was secured, she deleted the photos, smugly thinking she had successfully scammed her boss. Later, when Happy Nest launched the Campus All-Stars contest, she couldn't have been bothered to even look at it. But in the split second before she closed the notification window, she glanced at the prize list, and her eyes had locked on. 10 bags of special grade fertilizer for Garden Grab. In that instant, her plans changed. Campus All-Stars, let's go. Not only did she enter the competition herself, but yesterday, she'd also made sure to remind her boss to vote for her. As for the Mako Entertainment art team, she had personally stood over each of them to ensure they cast their votes in her favor. Now, sitting on his bunk, Leo watched his roommates swoon over Isabella's photo and thought back to the cheap, starry-eyed look she had yesterday when talking about the prize. He couldn't help but find it hilarious. The dissonance was surreal. It was like watching an angel descend from the heavens, assuming she was on some grand mission to save humanity, only to find out she just had a craving for a chili dog. The great Isabella Zhao had spent a year at Berkeley, floating above the fray. And in the end, it took 10 bags of virtual fertilizer to get her to roll up her sleeves and jump into the fight. How would you even describe it? You could only say that Isabella Zhao had the looks, and when it came to brains, well, she had the looks. Down below, Marco and the others were still shaking their heads. With Isabella in the race, the Berkeley competition is a done deal. And it was true. Before, the top contenders on the leaderboard were all neck and neck, their vote counts clustered together. The top 5 all had around 500 or 600 votes. As of noon today, Hannah Chu, the freshman girl from the athletics department, had just taken the lead by posting 2 new photos. Her stunningly long legs had caused a sensation, pushing her votes to over 900. But the moment Isabella posted her photo, it caused an uproar. In just a few hours, her votes skyrocketed to 1,800. Leon sighed. That's the power of the arts department's #1 beauty. Marco waved his hand dismissively. It's over. A landslide victory. Then he paused, turning to glance up at a certain handsome guy on the top bunk. Unless Dylan and Leon caught on, their heads swiveling in unison to look at the same person. Unless. It was like that classic line from a fantasy epic. The Dark Lord's power is absolute, his evil sword supreme. But if the sword of light appears, who will truly reign? Here at Berkeley, the saying had to be tweaked. Berkeley's queen is Isabella of Arts. But when Bertha appears, they all fall apart. Leo noticed their stares and waved a hand nonchalantly. What are you looking at me for? My Claire isn't participating. The guys from room 520 fell silent. Even though they were the best of friends, they couldn't help but feel a surge of envy. What kind of good karma did this guy rack up? He gets to date the perfect 10 out of 10 campus goddess, and he's already calling her my Claire? What? Did you take a bullet for Bertha in a past life or something? Ignoring the resentful stares of his roommates, Leo's phone buzzed. He answered it. Hello. The sweet, melodic voice of Ms. Bertha Sue came through the line. I'm hungry. Let's go eat. His girlfriend was hungry. This was a matter of utmost importance. Leo immediately flipped himself off the bed, leaving his 3 roommates behind as he rushed out the door. Downstairs, by the entrance to the dorm building, a familiar, radiant figure was already waiting under the shade of a tree. The early summer afternoon was bright and hot, and the sunlight filtering through the leaves cast dappled shadows on the ground. The girl under the tree was dressed in a simple white t-shirt and casual jeans, her slender white arms exposed. One hand was tucked into a pocket, the other shielding her eyes from the sun. She exuded an air of casual elegance. The sight alone was enough to make one's heart skip a beat. Leo pulled out his phone, stood at the dorm entrance, aimed the camera at the girl, and pressed the shutter button. Click! He captured the image of the girl under the tree. Phone cameras in this era weren't high definition. The picture was slightly overexposed in the bright sun, a little blurry and grainy. But even a photo like this, if uploaded to Happiness for the Campus All-Stars competition, would have effortlessly crushed the competition. Hearing the click of the camera, the girl under the tree instinctively turned toward the sound. She saw the familiar figure of her boyfriend, and the phone in his hand pointed right at her. Claire raised an eyebrow and made a finger gun, aiming it at Leo. What do you think you're doing? Taking my picture? Leo played along, raising his hands in surrender. You're just too beautiful. I couldn't help myself. My apologies, my apologies. But could you maybe lower the gun first? Claire kept her finger gun aimed at him, her expression cool. No, you think a little flattery is enough to get you off the hook? I'm not that easy. Leo scratched his head. Then what should I do? Claire aimed her finger gun at his head, her voice a cool threat. Figured out. Leo thought seriously for a moment, then made a solemn proposal. How about I treat you to a nice meal at the Wisteria? Claire tilted her head, as if considering it. How nice. $15 a person. Too low. 20. Is one picture of me only worth 20 bucks? 25. We'll get the spicy chicken pot for 50. That's my final offer. Any higher, and you might as well just shoot me. A smile bloomed on the girl's lips, and the cool facade she put on melted away like ice in the sun. Deal. She lowered her gun and skipped over to him, taking his hand with a grin. Let's go. I haven't had the Wisteria's spicy chicken pot in forever. If we hurry, we might not have to wait in line. As she led him toward the Wisteria dining hall, Leo muttered under his breath, all this for a chicken pot, pointing a gun at your boyfriend's head. I guess the chicken pot is more important than me. Claire, still walking briskly ahead, heard his complaint and glanced back at him reproachfully. What are you talking about? That's the Wisteria's signature dish. It's way more important than my boyfriend. Leo nearly choked. He rolled his eyes. Fine, go marry the chicken pot then. I won't be the third wheel. Claire's smile was radiant. Nope, the chicken pot and the boyfriend. I want both. Leo declared righteously. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I refuse. The next second, the girl's finger gun was pressed smartly against his temple again. Your refusal is useless. I have a gun. Leo's expression darkened. Like I don't. I have a gun too. Unfortunately, some guns couldn't be pulled out in public. Leo dutifully followed Claire to the small restaurant in the Wisteria known for its spicy chicken pot. The young couple found a table, sat down, and ordered. While they waited for their food, other Berkeley students started trickling in. After ordering, they all eagerly pulled out their phones, furiously tapping and scrolling. One student called out to his friend, Hey, vote for Lily Lou for me. His friend was resolute. No way. My vote is reserved for Hannah Chu. It seemed like almost everyone was talking about the Happiness Campus All-Stars contest. Seeing the passionate discussions at the tables around them, Leo couldn't help but smile. This event is really taking off. As the one who'd planned it, he was very satisfied with the results. Across from him, Claire nodded in agreement. Happiness is impressive. The person who came up with this plan is a genius. Leo was amused. He looked at Claire and joked. What? You thinking of recruiting them to Sterling Holdings? Being praised to his face by his girlfriend, who had no idea it was him, felt pretty good. He even started to consider telling her the truth, just to surprise her and see the shocked look on Bertha Sue's face. But Claire just frowned slightly and shook her head. This person is hiding too deep. They must be incredibly cunning, not someone easy to deal with. She'd asked her team at Sterling Holdings to do some digging, but she hadn't heard anything back yet. Leo had to suppress a grin. It's probably not as dramatic as you think. The next second, his girlfriend cut him off. Once I find out who it is, it might be cleaner to just handle them directly. Her tone was cool and decisive. Absolutely ruthless. Leo froze. He suddenly felt it might be better not to rush into telling his girlfriend the truth. For the sake of his own life, it was probably safer to wait. After they finished their lunch at the restaurant and paid with their student cards, they were both full. Instead of heading straight back to their respective residences, they strolled hand in hand along the campus paths to walk off the meal. Usually, the campus was peaceful and quiet in the afternoon, but today was different. They had just left the Wisteria and hadn't walked far before they saw groups of students gathered ahead, making a lot of noise. Looking closer, they saw people holding signs and even banners shouting. Brothers and sisters passing by, if you haven't voted in the Happiness Campus All-Stars contest yet, please vote for Samantha Wong from the class of '08 School of Engineering. Vote here. Get a free iced tea when you're done. Another group nearby was not to be outdone. They had pushed several desks together, lining them with 3 entire rows of bubble tea, and were shouting through a megaphone. Tessa Shun from the Math and Physics department. We need backup. Vote for her and get a red bean bubble tea. 1 cup for 3 votes. 3 cups for 10. Even as the architect of the event, Leo had never imagined the Campus All-Stars contest would get this explosive. He could only conclude that he had underestimated the competitive drive among beautiful women, as well as the sheer creative energy of college students. Give them a platform, and they would turn it into a spectacle. He had thought the contest would just involve people posting photos online and asking a friend for a few votes. He never expected the campaign to move from online to offline. The fans of each contestant had formed their own little groups and were out here on campus, promoting their chosen candidate. They'd even resorted to the simple yet effective marketing tactic of giving away small gifts for votes. The marketing and finance professors would have been so proud. Practical application. This year's students are excellent. One group was giving away iced tea. Another was giving away spicy chips. The most shameless was the math and physics team, whose 3 cups for 10 votes deal was designed to scam you out of an extra vote. You had to respect the hustle from the math nerds. And it wasn't just the fan clubs organizing these campaigns. Some of the contestants were getting involved personally. A commotion erupted a short distance away. Tanya's here. It's Tanya Tang, the department girl. She's here to rally the troops. In the distance, a beautiful girl in a flight attendant uniform and black heels approached with elegant grace. She smiled and waved at her campaign team. I just got out of my professional skills class, so I thought I'd come by and see how things are going. Thanks for all your hard work, everyone. Her fans were electrified, roaring in response. It's no trouble at all. We live to serve Tanya. The top spot in the Berkeley Campus All-Stars must go to our tourism and hospitality department. She claimed she just finished class and happened to be wearing her uniform. In reality, It was a meticulously planned power move, a special outfit equipped to maximize attack speed. All for this seemingly casual, stunning appearance. Leo, watching from the edge of the crowd, couldn't help but be impressed. This girl is sharp. I don't think the tourism and hospitality department has any professional skills classes today. Standing beside him, Claire raised an eyebrow and glanced at her boyfriend. How do you know they don't have class today? Leo was still watching the crowd, thoroughly entertained. Hearing his girlfriend's question, he answered without thinking. Oh, their professional etiquette class is on Thursdays and Fridays, third period in the afternoon. Marco, Leon, and I used to go all the time. He trailed off. He stopped because the air temperature suddenly dropped several degrees, and a chilly, murderous aura began to spread. Turning his head, he saw Bertha, soon narrowing her eyes, a half-smile playing on her lips. You used to go, all the time. Leo struggled to keep his expression neutral as he instantly corrected himself. The professional etiquette class, for posture and deportment. Leon, Marco, and Dylan wanted to work on theirs, so they went to observe and learn. I wasn't really interested, but they insisted I come along so I wouldn't be left out. A slight curve appeared on Claire's lips. Is that so? Then you must have learned quite a bit. Then, the girl made a nonchalant decision. All right, when we go home this weekend, you can walk a few steps for me in high heels. Leo was stunned. Huh? Claire looked up at her boyfriend, her eyes clear and innocent. Just to check on your progress. You weren't slacking off and just staring at the pretty girls, were you? Leo swallowed hard and nodded firmly. Of course not. Beneath his calm exterior, his pupils were quaking. Oh crap, I need to learn how to do a runway walk fast. In the crowd, Tanya Tang, the it girl of the tourism department, smiled sweetly as she chatted with the students who were helping her campaign. She even personally handed out cups of bubble tea to passersby. After handing one over, she would clasp her hands together and thank the person with wide, sparkling eyes. Faced with this combination of moves, what naive college guy could possibly resist? Forget voting for her. They'd willingly be her loyal dogs. The votes were a given. They pulled out their phones and immediately went to Happy Nest. After voting, they even called home. Mom, Dad, stop napping. How can you sleep at a time like this? Get up and help our department's a girl win this battle. Watching the scene unfold, Claire couldn't decide whether to laugh or be impressed. This whole setup, it's almost like a Miss America state pageant. It was true. There were fan clubs campaigning, contestants making personal appearances, and all sorts of tactics being employed in the fierce competition. Even the university's Founders Week celebration hadn't been this lively. Beside her, Leo nodded in agreement, but added, Still, I doubt any of them will win the top spot at Berkeley. Claire's expression showed she agreed. Isabella's in the race. The others can't compete with her. The graded girl of the arts department, who usually kept to herself, had been lured out by the promise of 10 bags of special-grade fertilizer from Garden Grab. Now that she had entered the fray, she wasn't about to go home empty-handed. Even though contestants like Tanya Tang were out here campaigning hard, the vote counts for most of the department of girls were still only hovering just over 1,000. Isabella, on the other hand, still only had that one simple photo posted to her account, yet her vote count had already surged to 3,500. Her fame wasn't limited to Berkeley. The photo had gone viral, attracting attention from students at other universities who were equally captivated by the beauty of the girl in the art studio. The comment section was exploding with people tagging their friends. Holy crap, you have to see this. Top-tier content. This is the good stuff. Berkeley has an angel. Of course, Isabella's victory in the Berkeley division was only guaranteed on one condition, that a certain Ms. Bertha Sue stayed out of the competition. Leo glanced at his girlfriend. Claire sensed his gaze and gave a casual wave of her hand. I'm not playing. Let Isabella have her fun. Spoken with the grace of the Mako Entertainment boss's wife. And besides, she had just judo-flipped the poor girl last week. She figured she owed her something. Since she had no intention of participating, the young couple was content to stroll leisurely through the bustling campaign sites, just enjoying the show. They grabbed a bubble tea here, a bag of spicy chips there. It would be a waste not to take advantage of the freebies. A student in charge of one of the fan clubs spotted the two of them sneakily collecting gifts and shot them a sharp look. Hey, don't just take the bubble tea. Did you vote for Samantha Wong from the School of Engineering? Caught red-handed, Leo and Claire turned around. The moment the student saw Claire, he froze. Then, sweating profusely, he managed a strained smile. Oh, it's Leo and Claire. Aha, just out for a walk, are we? Thirsty, right? Here, take a few more cups of bubble tea to go. Don't be shy, it's on us. A little something for you too. He fawningly handed them a bag of bubble tea. Voting? No, don't worry about it. Just one small request. Claire, please, just don't enter the contest yourself. This wasn't campaigning for votes anymore. This was pure tribute to the overlords. What else could they do? She was unbeatable. It was one thing for the department at girls to compete among themselves for a ranking. But if the judge herself entered the competition, how was anyone else supposed to play? The Happiness Campus All-Stars contest was an unexpectedly massive success. Not just at Berkeley, but at universities across East Bay and even in major cities nationwide, it sparked a frenzy of campaigning. The most direct result of this explosive popularity was another massive surge in Happiness registered users. In just a few days, the number was approaching the 80 million mark. On Thursday night, David Chung reported this number to Leo over the phone, his voice filled with a dreamlike disbelief. 80 million. 80 million. Before, when you said our goal was 100 million registered users within a year, I thought you were dreaming. Now, it's been less than 4 months since we launched, and we're already 80% of the way there. 100 million users. It's not a dream anymore. Leo, standing on his dorm room balcony, listened to his old friend's emotional speech and just smiled calmly. That's nothing. If we push a little harder, we can break 100 million with this one event. On the other end of the line, David Chung couldn't help but grin. Yeah, if we keep this momentum, we'll definitely break 100 million by July at the latest. The old problem is cropping up again, though. The user base is growing too fast, and our servers can't keep up. The company is on fire, but the money in our account is burning just as fast. He ended with a sigh. It was a good problem to have, but it was still a problem. Leo, however, just chuckled. Don't worry, I have a new idea. He had to thank the fan clubs at Berkeley for the inspiration. When he and his girlfriend were walking around campus after their meal at the Wisteria, they had stumbled upon the various campaign teams set up with tables, banners, and small gifts to entice people to vote. Most people saw it as just a bit of fun, but the ruthless capitalist Kevin Zhou saw it and immediately had a stroke of genius, a brand new way to make money. The contestants were using small gifts to get votes offline. As the host of the event, couldn't Happiness get in on the action? They could take a page from American Idol's playbook from a few years back. During the voting rounds, they opened up premium text message channels, allowing fans to pay to support their favorite contestants. Happiness had something better. It had the wildly popular game, Garden Grab. They could create a crossover promotion. Anyone who spent $6 in Garden Grab would receive 1 extra vote per day. Spend $30, and you'd get the maximum of 5 extra votes. This would accomplish several things. First, it would funnel users from the Happiness social platform into Garden Grab, turning them into new players. Second, it would use the event to massively boost the game's revenue. And there was a third benefit. Those game players who weren't originally interested in the social features of Happiness, upon receiving their bonus votes, would think, might as well use them. They would come over to the social platform to cast their vote and see what all the fuss was about. And once they were there, a portion of them would inevitably stick around, converting into active users of the social platform. To sum it up, Leo said, offering a simple conclusion, we create a two-way funnel between the platforms, and we make a quick buck in the process. The line went silent for a full 30 seconds. Finally, David Chung spoke, his voice laced with awe. Are you the devil? On the other end, the person in question replied humbly, you're too kind. I'm just a simple man named Joe. Jokes aside, David Chung did a quick mental calculation. Given the current popularity of the contest, if he converted a certain percentage of participants into paying Garden Grab players, the potential revenue was staggering. He couldn't help but feel a jolt of excitement. If this works, the profits from the game could not only cover the cost of new servers and maintenance, but we might even have a surplus. Leo nodded, adding, and if we need to, we can extend the contest into multiple stages. Stage 1 is the campus-level competition. Stage 2 could be a citywide competition. Stage 3 statewide. Stage 4 national. Drag out the timeline a bit. Give people more opportunities to spend money on votes. The line went dead again. After another long pause, David's voice came through, filled with a complex mix of emotions. Now I know why you use an alias. If anyone found out your real name, they'd hunt you down and kill you. Regardless, the new rules devised by Happiness Chief Strategy Officer were quickly implemented. And just as Leo had predicted, the moment they were announced, Garden Grab saw a massive influx of new players, and the daily revenue shattered all previous records. Never underestimate the passion of college students. When they decided to support their goddess or their department's a girl, what was 10 or 20 bucks? Take my money. Suddenly, the vote counts on the leaderboards at universities everywhere began to soar once again. At Berkeley, the established girls like Chloe Chin, Tanya Tang, and Hannah Chu all saw their votes break the 5,000 mark. Isabella Zhao, who had been comfortably in the lead, was now barely holding on to first place with just over 6,000 votes. Her position was looking precarious. After all, the other girls were out there in person, leading armies of fans who were paying for votes. The pay-to-win players were an unstoppable force. This made Isabella anxious. She didn't care about the title of campus queen, but she couldn't bear the thought of losing the 10 bags of special-grade fertilizer that were almost in her grasp. In a moment of desperation, she grit her teeth and made a bold decision. The graded girl of the arts department started spending her own money. She gathered the members of the Mako Entertainment art team, handed each of them $30, and told them to buy votes for her. When that wasn't enough, she rushed over to the programming department and, for the first time, sweetly asked Wyatt Way for his help. Wyatt took the money she offered, his mind struggling to process the situation. Hold on, let me get this straight. You're in a beauty contest to win 10 bags of fertilizer for a game. Isabella nodded vigorously, her eyes shining. Yes, and not just any fertilizer. Special grade fertilizer. Wyatt frowned, continuing to piece it together. 10 bags of special grade fertilizer. If you bought them the game, it would cost, what, $20 a bag? So, $200 total. Isabella nodded again. Exactly. It's a super rare item. Wyatt took a deep breath. So, to win a $200 prize, you're now paying us to vote for you. How much have you spent so far? Isabella held up 4 fingers without a second thought. 400. Wyatt was speechless. The well-traveled, worldly young master was utterly defeated. After a long moment, he handed the cash back to her, his expression a mixture of pity and concern. I'm not taking your money, but sister, you should seriously consider seeing a doctor about your brain. Even after mobilizing her entire 2 teams of colleagues and spending a whopping $400 of her own money, the number of votes Isabella gained was a drop in the bucket compared to her competitors. Seeing her lead shrink as the pay-to-win crowd caught up, she started to get restless. Her special-grade fertilizer, her wallet couldn't support any more spending. So, for the first time ever, the graded girl of the arts department posted a second update to her Happy Nest account. Along with a brand new photo, she added a caption. Could everyone please help me out and cast a vote? Thank you. On the surface, the words were gentle and poised, perfectly matching the image of the talented and graceful arts student people had in their minds. In reality, her true inner monologue went something like this. I'm begging you. Please vote for me. I really want that special grade fertilizer. But it had to be said, the effect of this single post was nothing short of astonishing. Before, people had voted for her simply because they were captivated by the beauty and aura of the girl in the photo. They'd cast their vote and moved on. But now, things were different. The great Isabella Zhao was asking for help. This was a wake-up call for countless students at Berkeley and even users from other schools. Holy crap, Isabella needs our help. How dare anyone try to beat her? A single arrow pierces the clouds, and 1,000 soldiers come to answer the call. Brothers, charge. We have to get her vote count up. Her opponent has 5,000 votes? I'll raise you. Let's get Isabella to 10,000. And just like that, Isabella Zhao's vote count on the leaderboard began to skyrocket at a mind-boggling pace. Led by the students from the arts department, countless casual fans started spending money in Garden Grab, and every single vote they earned was poured into her campaign. Within 3 short hours, her vote count shot up to 12,000. She was miles ahead of the competition, in a league of her own. By Friday afternoon, her vote count had surged to an incredible 23,000. It was so high that people started to wonder if she was using bots. Even the staff at Happy Nest took notice. During routine maintenance, an employee in the back-end programming department was checking the database and noticed the ridiculously high growth rate for one contestant's votes. He saw that she was from Berkeley. Whispers immediately started spreading through the office. Little boss Lin is from Berkeley, isn't he? Is that girl his girlfriend? Is he giving her special treatment? Probably. Makes perfect sense to me. When Leo arrived at the Happy Nest headquarters on Wanning Road for a meeting, he heard the gossip and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What are you all talking about? That's not my girlfriend. David Chung, who was closing his office door, heard him and waved a hand dismissively. You can't blame them. You're always going on about how beautiful your girlfriend is, like an angel. The guys here saw the photo of that Isabella Zhao at the top of your school's leaderboard. She really is gorgeous. Calling her an angel isn't an exaggeration at all. There are even a few knuckleheads in the programming department who are secretly spending their own money to vote for her. An angel? Leo thought back to the meeting he'd just had with his 2 departments in the art studio before coming over. He remembered Isabella staring at her phone with a vacant expression, giggling foolishly to herself from time to time. He shook his head. With an IQ like that, she could never be an angel. He pulled himself back to the present and clarified again for David. She's really not my girlfriend. Then he added, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, my girlfriend is prettier. David wasn't buying it. He rolled his eyes. Keep dreaming. That Zhao girl is already unbelievably beautiful. How could anyone be prettier than her? Besides, if your angel girlfriend is as amazing as you say, why isn't she in the contest? The students at Berkeley had the same question. The Happiness Campus All-Stars contest was in full swing, with department and school-lit girls battling it out fiercely. Although Isabella Zhao had come out of nowhere to dominate the field, everyone, while acknowledging her victory, couldn't help but have the same thought. Isabella Zhao was undeniably, impeccably beautiful. But if the great Claire Sterling were to enter, she would still win by a comfortable margin. However, while the students were a little disappointed that Claire wasn't participating, they were mostly relieved. With Isabella in the running, at least the others still had a fighting chance. If the final boss herself entered the game, everyone else might as well just quit. Some were relieved. Others were not happy. For example, the father of a certain Berkeley campus queen. That evening, in the chairman's office on the 37th floor of the Sterling Holdings headquarters in the city's central business district, Charles Sterling finished his work for the day. He opened his computer and, like a young person, decided to try surfing the web. The internet was booming in the country. For a man of his stature and success, he still had the humility to keep learning, refusing to be left behind by the times. A while back, during a gathering with his old friend Carl Carlson, the CEO of Nexus, he had heard him mention something called Happy Nest. The name sounded familiar to Charles Sterling. Not long ago, at the National Charity Gala in D.C. for the Southwest Quake Relief, Sterling Holdings had donated $200 million. But a small company, founded just a few months prior, had donated $32 million, causing a stir at the event. That company was Happy Nest. Because of this, the chairman held a certain appreciation and goodwill toward this up-and-coming internet company, even though it was insignificant compared to Sterling Holdings. Now, he opened his web browser. On a whim, he painstakingly typed Happy Nest with his two-finger typing method and hit enter. He clicked on the homepage. The first thing he saw was a promotional banner for the Campus All-Stars contest. The tagline read, "Choose the campus king and queen of your heart." Charles Sterling raised an eyebrow. Campus king and queen? This happiness company certainly knew how to stir things up. His interest piqued. The chairman prepared to click and see what it was all about, only to find that he had to register for an account first. He spent a great deal of effort fumbling with it, and in the end, had to call his secretary in to help him get it done. When it came to choosing a username, the secretary cautiously asked for his boss's preference. Charles Sterling thought for a moment, then made a decision. Just call it the Old Man S. Once the secretary had finished the registration and left, the chairman's enthusiasm had not waned. He excitedly searched for the Berkeley leaderboard. When he saw the rankings, his brow furrowed. What was this? Why wasn't his precious daughter in first place? Chairman Sterling was in a foul mood. The moment he saw the banner for the Campus All-Stars contest, his first thought was of his precious daughter. He had eagerly clicked on the Berkeley leaderboard, fully expecting to see her name at the very top. But instead, her name was nowhere to be found. He looked at the current number one, a girl named Isabella Zhao. She was indeed quite pretty. But compared to his, Charles Sterling's, darling daughter, she was still lacking a little something. Why wasn't his daughter number one? He saw a customer service contact on the banner, clicked on it to open a chat window, and painstakingly typed out a question with his two-finger method. The reply from the Happiness customer service representative was polite and professional. Your daughter may not be on the leaderboard because she doesn't have enough votes. There are several ways to get more votes. First, you can invite more friends to register for Happy Nest and vote for the person you support. Second, you can make a purchase in Happy Nest game, Garden Grab, to receive up to 5 bonus votes daily. Charles Sterling understood. It was just a bunch of cheap marketing tricks that were common in the physical world. A scam for fools. While scoffing at the idea, Chairman Sterling quickly located the so-called Garden Grab game and opened it. He went directly to the payment page. He couldn't figure it out. He called his secretary back in. Lou, help me make a payment. Scam or not, he had to fully support his precious daughter. How could he let the princess of the Sterling family suffer such an indignity? However, after his secretary helped him complete the payment and collect the votes, he waved her away like a pesky fly. The secretary left with a strange look on her face. Chairman Sterling, full of excitement, clicked back to the leaderboard page, only to freeze. Wait a minute. He had the votes. But where did he cast them? So he contacted customer service again. The representative was still patient in their explanation. You can click on the profile of the person you want to support and select the Vote option in their contest post. Chairman Sterling got it now. He quickly typed his precious daughter's name into the search bar, Claire Sterling. He hit search. A long list of results appeared. He hadn't realized so many people were named Claire Sterling. This one wasn't her, that one wasn't her, and who was this ugly one daring to use the name Claire Sterling? Wait, why was there a guy named Claire Sterling? And then there was some kind of intelligently recommended related account. The reasonable couple? What was all this nonsense? Chairman Sterling had no interest. He skipped right past the account with the fat parrot avatar. After a great deal of scrolling and effort, he finally found a profile that listed Berkeley, class of 2007, and a birthday of May 21 SD. This had to be it. Charles Sterling confirmed it was his daughter's account, but then he looked closer and was puzzled. His daughter's profile picture wasn't one of her beautiful photos. It was a picture of an old-fashioned jade bangle. Charles Sterling, what was this thing? Had his daughter developed an interest in jade? And her taste was so poor. If his daughter wanted jade, she should have the best, a flawless glassy variety or an imperial green. This ugly bangle was plain and unremarkable. It looked so cheap. After delivering a scathing and utterly clueless critique of the jade bangle in his daughter's profile picture, Chairman Sterling remembered his mission. He still had a vote for her. However, when he refocused and searched all over her profile page, he couldn't find the voting option anywhere. He asked customer service again and finally learned that his daughter hadn't even entered the competition. It all made sense now. Of course, he knew that if his daughter had entered, she would have easily won first place. Having figured out the reason, Chairman Sterling didn't stop there. He felt a surge of fatherly love with nowhere to go. He was bursting with it. He picked up his phone and called his daughter. Ring, ring, ring. After a few rings, the call was answered. His daughter's cool voice came through the line. What is it? Sitting at his desk, Charles Sterling's spirits lifted, and he immediately put on a smile. Claire, are you out of class? Dad was just surfing the web. I saw that Happy Nest is holding some kind of campus queen contest. Why didn't you join? On the other end of the line, the girl paused. You're on Happy Nest. Charles Sterling laughed heartily. Yes, Dad is learning from you young people, trying to keep up with the times. I just followed you. Remember to follow me back. Oh, and that campus queen contest, you should hurry up and enter. Dad will get everyone at Sterling Holdings to vote for you. Chairman Sterling puffed out his chest, making a bold promise. The next second, he heard his daughter's voice. I'm busy. The line went dead, leaving only a dial tone. On his end, Chairman Sterling was stunned. Hello, Claire. And he shook his head, comforting himself. That girl, why is she so shy with her old dad? He put down his phone and turned back to the computer screen, thinking of leaving a comment on his daughter's profile. He had just clicked on the comment section when a pop-up appeared on the screen. You have been blocked from accessing this user's profile. Charles Sterling. At the LNS house, Leo walked out of the kitchen with a plate of freshly washed fruit and saw his girlfriend sitting on the sofa, putting away her phone. He asked casually, what are you up to? Having just blocked her old man from her followers list, Claire put her phone away and replied nonchalantly, nothing, just a telemarketer. Leo nodded, understanding. He brought the fruit over to the sofa, sat down, and speared a slice of apple with a toothpick, holding it to his girlfriend's lips. Have a bite. Claire opened her mouth and ate the apple, a look of contentment on her face. Yummy. Then she looked at her boyfriend. What were you saying earlier? Something about a festival. Leo made a sound of agreement. Yeah, a comic and anime fest. It starts next Wednesday and runs through the weekend. Claire thought for a moment and remembered. The one Marco was talking about, right? The first annual East Bay University Gaming and Anime Festival. Last weekend, when their two dorms were studying together at the LNS house, Marco had been excitedly talking about it. It was being held at the East Bay Stadium. There would be all sorts of domestic and international game and anime companies exhibiting, holding events, and selling merchandise. For college students, it was a stage to show off their cosplay. Leo nodded and smiled at his girlfriend. So, want to go check it out? Before returning to the LNS house, back at the Happy Nest headquarters, Leo and David Chung had been discussing this very thing. Last week, Leo had mentioned to him that this wave of publicity should be enough to push Happy Nest's registered user count past 100 million. In addition to the Campus All-Stars contest, they needed a multi-pronged approach with other events. The upcoming East Bay University Gaming and Anime Festival was a perfect opportunity. David Chung had taken Leo's advice and contacted the festival organizers last week. He even met with a director from the East Bay Cultural Affairs Bureau to express Happy Nest's interest in participating. The Cultural Affairs Bureau and the festival organizers were already well acquainted with Happy Nest, the new star of the country's internet scene. Especially after the recent Southwest quake, Happiness Brainiac Blitz game, which had been used to disseminate disaster relief knowledge, and their subsequent $32 million donation had earned them high praise from both the public and government officials. So, when David Chung stated his intentions, the officials agreed without hesitation. They even enthusiastically invited Happiness to be a co-sponsor to help with promotion, hoping to work together to make the first-ever festival an even bigger success. Of course, once the co-sponsorship was settled, Leo, the one who had proposed the idea, didn't need to worry about the details. As the chief strategy officer, his job was just to offer suggestions. The rest of the company would be busy. He, on the other hand, was free to simply take his girlfriend to the festival to have some fun. Claire readily accepted Leo's proposal. Sure, let's go. Then she remembered something. A few days ago in the dorm, Molly, Quinn, and Jay were talking about it too. They were planning on getting some costumes and props to go cosplay. Leo chuckled. That's what these conventions are for. A place for anime fans to get together and show off their cosplay. Marco and Dylan in our dorm are getting ready, too. They've been super secretive about it these past few days. Who knows what they're planning on dressing up as? Then, Leo looked at Claire and raised his eyebrows. Why don't you do one, too? Claire paused. Then a look of hesitation appeared on her face. I don't have any experience. I'm not a professional. The great CEO of Sterling Holdings had never been a die-hard anime fan in her past life. Her knowledge of conventions and cosplayers was limited to the occasional news photo or short video online. She only knew that the cosplay community seemed to have all sorts of strict standards. To cosplay a character, you had to get everything from the makeup and hair to the costume and props perfect, or you'd get flamed online. Leo, however, waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about it. Who says you have to be a professional to cosplay? It's just for fun. Amateurs can join in. No one's going to get all serious about it. His words made Claire a little tempted. She looked up at her boyfriend and asked for his opinion. So, what do you think I should cosplay as? Here we go. At that moment, a tiny, cartoon version of Leo popped into existence in his mind, its eyes burning with a passionate flame. I've finally been waiting for this day. The chance to get Bertha to wear a costume of my choosing. His heart was pounding with excitement, but on the surface, he put on a look of profound righteousness. Since you asked so sincerely, I happen to have a few ideas that just crossed my mind. You can use them for reference. The next second, as if by magic, he had his laptop out. He placed it on his lap, opened the screen, and quickly pulled up a list of cosplay options, complete with reference images. At the same time, he launched into a detailed explanation for his girlfriend. There are so many options. Let's look at some classic characters from popular anime over the years. Look, there's Nami, Robin, and Boa Hancock from One Piece. And Angewoman from Digimon isn't bad either. Oh, and this one, the second sister from Cats, is an absolute classic. 5-star recommendation. Claire's brow furrowed as she looked at the images. Aren't these a little too revealing? Would they even be allowed at the convention? Leo snapped back to reality. Huh, what convention? We could try these on at home. We can't let all the perverts at the convention get a free show. Before he could finish, his ear was pinched by his girlfriend. The girl's voice was a mixture of sweetness and menace. You little pervert, I was asking you for serious advice, not for you to fulfill your own fantasies. He winced in pain. When Claire finally let go, Leo obediently went back to brainstorming. Soon, he had a new idea. His eyes lit up, and he quickly typed on the keyboard, searched for an image, and then enlarged it on the screen. How about this one? Claire leaned in curiously to look at the screen. The image showed a capable-looking woman in a sharp uniform, like a member of a special task force. The uniform was primarily white, with red and black accents, and an orange logo with the word guts on the chest. Claire was completely bewildered. What's this one? Leo's face was glowing. The Victory Team uniform from Ultraman Tiga. Claire was speechless. Torn between annoyance and amusement at her silly boyfriend, Claire kicked him playfully on the butt. Claire had come to a realization about her boyfriend. In times of crisis, he was the most dependable partner you could ever ask for, someone you could trust with your life. But when things were calm, beneath that cool and composed exterior, he was always coming up with some ridiculous idea or scheme. They say that men are boys at heart. The girl glanced at her boyfriend and sighed, putting a hand to her forehead. This idiot isn't a boy. He's a 3-year-old at best. It was hopeless to expect any real help from him. Claire made a decision. Forget it, I'll choose my own. Then she looked at Leo and raised an eyebrow. But you have to cosplay with me. Leo readily agreed. Sure. Which Power Ranger do you want me to be? Before he could finish, Claire, thoroughly exasperated, pounced on him pinning him to the sofa and biting his lip. Still talking about Power Rangers. I'm gonna bite you to death. The comic and anime fest started next Wednesday, which left just enough time to prepare costumes and props. The two dorms discussed it and decided to go together on Wednesday afternoon. Over the weekend, everyone gathered at the LNS house as usual to study for their upcoming exams. But with the festival on their minds, they spent their breaks excitedly discussing what characters they should cosplay. In the afternoon, the guys sat around the dining table. Marco was giving Leon ideas. You should just go as the Terminator from the beginning of the movie. It's super easy. You don't even need a costume or props. All you need is muscles. Leon, though good-natured, was an idiot. He immediately grew wary. The beginning of the movie. Isn't he naked? Dylan was seriously considering cosplaying as a ninja. That way, he wouldn't have to talk to anyone at the convention. He could just stand there and make hand signs. Marco himself was full of ambition. How about to pick something cool? Oh man, what am I going to do if all the girls at the convention want to talk to me and I get overwhelmed? He was already worrying about his future popularity. After a round of enthusiastic brainstorming, the three of them turned to Leo. What are you going to cosplay as, Leo? Leo waved a hand nonchalantly. I'm doing whatever my Claire wants. I'll follow her lead. The trio from room 520 fell silent. There was again, my Claire. But their curiosity was piqued. Marco perked up. Oh yeah, what's Bertha going to be? Leo's expression turned mournful. I was hoping she'd wear a Power Ranger uniform. The guys from room 520 stared at him blankly for a second. Power Ranger? Then it hit them, and their faces lit up with understanding and awe. Holy crap, the Pink Ranger. Kimberly Hart. They all gave Leo a huge thumbs up. Dude, that idea is legendary. When Leo told them the idea had been shot down, they were all deeply disappointed. The brothers in arms sighed collectively and patted Leo on the shoulder in sympathy. Only a guy could truly understand the significance of the Pink Ranger uniform and Kimberly Hart. Dylan's face lit up with hope. But then again, Bertha would look good in anything she cosplays as. The ever-honest Leon added, she doesn't even need to cosplay. Bertha could just go in her regular clothes, and she'd still look like an angel. Leo glanced over at the living room sofa and smiled. I'm fine with whatever. It's up to her. Over in the living room, the girls from room 205 were gathered on the sofa, looking up reference materials on their phones and laptops, excitedly brainstorming ideas. From time to time, a shriek of excitement would erupt. Ooh, this one's good, this one's good. Molly, this would be perfect for you. It's so cute. Hey, and this character would be great for Quinn. She's got the long legs for it. For Jade. We need to find a character with a big chest. Wow, this one's huge. Jade, come compare. The girls' laughter and chatter filled the room. The snippets of their conversation that drifted over to the dining table were almost enough to make the guys' noses bleed. Fun fact, when girls started talking dirty, they were even wilder than guys. Then, it seemed like Quinn asked Claire what she was planning to cosplay. Claire smiled and waved her roommates closer, whispering her answer. The girls' eyes went wide, and they all gasped. Oh, that's perfect. Yes, Claire, you have to do that. It's so you. This made Leo prick up his ears, dying of curiosity. That night, after their friends had left, he sidled up to his girlfriend, offering her a plate of fruit as a pretense to get some information. Claire leaned back comfortably on the sofa, picked up a slice of apple with her slender fingers, and popped it into her mouth. Then she looked up at her boyfriend, a playful smile on her lips as she hooked a finger under his chin. You want to know? He nodded his head like a chicken pecking at grain. But the girl just smiled and patted his cheek. Then you'll just have to wait. You'll find out in a few days. With that, Claire rose gracefully and glided up the stairs. Even the sight of her back as she ascended was alluring. Leo gritted his teeth in frustration. That clever fox. She was getting better and better at this game of temptation. As the weekend came to a close, so did the first round of the Happy Nest Campus All-Stars contest. This first round alone had pushed Happy Nest's registered user count to 84 million. And at Berkeley, Isabella Zhao had secured first place with a staggering 43,000 votes. She had also, as she had hoped, received her 10 bags of special-grade fertilizer from Garden Grab. She was absolutely beaming. On Monday afternoon, during the company meeting in the art studio, she couldn't stop bragging about it to Leo and Wyatt. Of course, when Leo casually asked her how much she had spent on the campaign, Isabella still winced a little. It ended up being over $500. Then she quickly consoled herself. It's fine. It's just this one time. Leo helpfully reminded her. There's a second round, you know? That's right. David Chung, following the advice of his chief strategy officer, had gone with the flow. After the first round of the contest, The top 3 from each university would advance to a second round to compete for the title of city-level campus queen. Isabella waved her hands dismissively. No, I'm not interested in some empty title. I got my fertilizer. That's enough. This event is just a money pit. I'm not that stupid. She tilted her head back, looking incredibly pleased with her own intelligence. The next second, Wyatt, looking at his phone, exclaimed in surprise, "Whoa. The prize for winning the second round is 3 bags of king-grade fertilizer from Garden Grab." Isabella froze. Huh? What? What grade? Yes. Also per the instructions of a certain chief strategy officer, Garden Grab had been updated with new tiers of in-game items. The fertilizer, which previously had low, medium, high, and special grades, now had a new, higher quality, king-grade fertilizer. The item's icon even had a glittering golden crown on it, a symbol of its prestige. The sight left Isabella stunned for a full 3 minutes. When she finally came to her senses, she was once again fired up with determination. I've made my decision. I'm going for city-level campus queen. Question: for the graded girl of the arts department, what is more appealing than special grade fertilizer? Answer: king-grade fertilizer. In that short time, Isabella was already filled with renewed fighting spirit. She eagerly took out her phone, ran to the side to take a few selfies, and then uploaded them to her Happy Nest account with a new caption. For my dream, I want to keep fighting. Please support me. For my dream. Except for fertilizer. Square root from now on, she couldn't be called Isabella the Dazed. Fertilizer Queen seemed more appropriate. Wyatt, watching from the side, couldn't help but sigh and shake his head. She's falling for it again? Bro, the intelligence level of our art department head is seriously concerning. Shouldn't we rush her to a hospital? Leo turned to Wyatt, a look of surprise on his face. Falling for it? Wyatt scoffed. Of course. Happy Nest is totally scamming fools with this move. First, second round of the contest, then there will be a third and a fourth. And the game items, too. It was special grade fertilizer, now it's king grade. Next, it'll be emperor grade, sovereign grade, holy grade, divine grade. Someone like Isabella is going to be tricked into oblivion, isn't she? Leo was genuinely impressed. He looked at the young master of the Wei family with new respect. Your insight is razor sharp. Wyatt preened. It's nothing really. I do come from a business family, after all. Leo nodded in appreciative agreement. Right. By the way, Claire and I were talking. From now on, you'll be paying a salary to the company each month. Wyatt. He was completely baffled. Huh? Bro, I don't even get a salary. Leo patted Wyatt's shoulder comfortingly. It's fine. You may not have a salary, but if you give some to the company will have one. Wyatt. Bro, isn't that a really twisted way of comforting someone? Leo thought for a moment. How about I tell Claire to come comfort you instead? Before he could finish, Wyatt had whipped out his wallet and started counting bills. Bro, just say the word. How much does the company need? Leo peered curiously into Wyatt's wallet. How much do you have? Wyatt. After living expenses, I have $1,300 left. Leo clapped his hands together. That's exactly how much we're short. With the respect money from his programming team lead in hand, Leo left the art studio in high spirits. As the boss, he wasn't really going to take advantage of his own employee. He'd give him a proper salary and bonus when the time came. He was just messing with him a little. A young man shouldn't be so arrogant, exposing Happy Nest's business model so easily. It would make him, the mastermind, lose face. After leaving the new campus, Leo took a taxi to the Happy Nest headquarters on Wanning Road. He was there to meet with David Chung for their regular meeting to review the company's recent performance. When he entered the building, he was greeted by a chorus of enthusiastic hellos from the employees. Little Boss Lin. Good afternoon, Little Boss Lin. They looked at him with the kind of fervent adoration one would reserve for an idol. Leo smiled and waved back, casually asking, Where's your boss, Chung? The employee he'd asked looked thrilled to be addressed. Boss Chung is in his office upstairs. A director from Municipal Cultural Affairs Bureau is here, talking with him. The Cultural Affairs Bureau? Leo was slightly surprised, but then it clicked. It must be about the University Comic and Anime Festival in 2 days. He went up to the second floor and knocked on the CEO's office door before pushing it open. Inside, David Chung was chatting and laughing with a middle-aged man in a formal jacket, around 40 years old. Seeing Leo, David grinned and waved him over. You're here. Quick, let me introduce you. With David's introduction, Leo learned that the man was Shun Sinian, a deputy director of the East Bay Cultural Affairs Bureau, in charge of cultural industries and arts events. The upcoming East Bay University Comic and Anime Fest fell under his jurisdiction. He was here today partly to discuss the event, and partly to see this rising star of East Bay's internet industry for himself. Leo extended his hand politely. Director Shun, it's a pleasure. Shun Sinian had also learned from David's introduction that Leo was Happy Nest's chief strategy officer. He was astounded by Leo's age and the fact that he was still a college student. After the initial shock came admiration. He shook Leo's hand firmly and laughed heartily. The new generation truly surpasses the old. We old folks are about to be washed away. The three of them sat down and continued their pleasant conversation. When the topic turned to the comic and anime festival they were co-sponsoring, Director Shun expressed the Bureau's hope that, with Happy Nest's influence, the event could become a well-known cultural brand for East Bay in the future. He also promised that the Bureau would provide as much help as possible, including dispatching police officers from a partner precinct to provide security. As he spoke, Shun Sinian glanced at his watch. I made a call earlier. Captain Xing should be here soon. David Chung didn't think anything of it, but Leo froze. Captain Xing. The name sounded vaguely familiar. The next moment, the sound of steady footsteps approached from outside. The office door opened, and a middle-aged man with a square jaw, dressed in a police uniform, hurried in. Director Shun, sorry I'm late. Shun Sinian stood up with a smile. No problem. I know you're busy at the precinct. Thanks for making the trip. Come, let me introduce everyone. This is Captain Xing, from the precinct that covers the stadium area. He'll be in charge of security for the festival. Captain Xing, this is the CEO of Happy Nest, Mr. Chung. David Chung eagerly shook the captain's hand. Captain Xing, a pleasure. Captain Xing smiled politely. The pleasure is all mine. As he spoke, he turned and glanced at the other young man in the room. The moment he saw Leo's face, Captain Xing froze. You again? Leo felt a little embarrassed. He shook hands with the man he'd already met 3 times. Captain Xing, we meet again. David and Director Shun were both stunned. You two know each other? Captain Xing nodded instinctively. Yes, we do. Then he couldn't help but look around the room, as if searching for other members of a criminal gang. Finding none, he finally turned back to Leo, his tone cautious and grave. Are you involved in a new case? David Chung. Shun Sinian. After a bit of confusion, everyone in the office finally understood the situation. David Chung and Shun Sinian looked at Leo with newfound respect. From Captain Xing's explanation, they learned that this young man had been to the police station several times already. Of course, not as a suspect, but to give statements. His track record was even more impressive. He'd stopped a criminal on a train, apprehended a fugitive in the city, taken down an entire criminal ring at a KTV, and just recently subdued a few thugs while rollerblading. Shun Sinian looked at Leo with even greater admiration. A true hero emerges from the young generation. David Chung sized Leo up and down, as if he were looking at some kind of monster. You're skilled in both business and combat. You can fight that well. Captain Xing chimed in helpfully. He went to the Northwood Martial Arts Academy in high school. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. No, it was all just a coincidence. I happened to be there. He turned to Captain Xing and extended his hand with a smile. Captain, what a coincidence again. Captain Xing shook his hand, looking at Leo with a sense of wonder. It really is. I never thought a young man like you, still in college, would also be a big boss. Incredible. Since they were all acquaintances, things moved along more smoothly. Shun Sinian briefly went over the plans for the upcoming festival, and Captain Xing stood at attention, assuring them that security would be tight and that he would cooperate fully with the organizers to ensure a successful event. In Captain Xing's words, if anyone dares to cause trouble at the festival, I'll personally cuff them and haul them away. David Chung chimed in with a laugh. With you in charge, Captain, I'm sure the festival will go off without a hitch. We won't see a shadow of any troublemakers. But at this praise, Captain Xing paused. He cautiously glanced at the handsome young man beside him. Well, about that. Then he leaned in and asked Leo in a low voice, Are you coming to the event? Leo nodded enthusiastically. I am. He added, I'm coming with my girlfriend. Captain Xing gasped. You're both coming? Shun Sinian asked, puzzled. Captain Xing, is there a problem? Captain Xing struggled to control his twitching eye and replied as calmly as possible. No problem. Then he pulled out his phone and quickly sent a text to his subordinate. Comic Fest in 2 days. Request backup from a neighboring precinct. Double the manpower. Such was the deterrent power of the magnets for trouble. After seeing off Shun Sinian and Captain Xing, Leo stayed at the office for a meeting with David Chung and the company's senior management. They briefly reviewed Happiness's recent performance and finalized the plans for the comic and anime festival. Finally, satisfied, Leo nodded. He left them with a casual, "Keep up the good work, guys. I'm heading out," and floated away under the resentful gazes of his employees who were preparing to work overtime. The life of a chief strategy officer was just that easy. That evening, back on the old campus, the two dorms met up for a late-night snack at Summit Grill by the East Gate. At the table, everyone was buzzing with excitement about the festival. But when they asked each other about their cosplay plans, everyone became secretive. "That's classified information. You'll see at the festival." After the barbecue, as the couple walked back through the campus, Leo couldn't help but ask his girlfriend again, "So what are we really cosplaying as? There are only 2 days left. You have to give me some time to prepare." But Claire just smiled. "Don't be impatient. You'll find out tomorrow." The next day, Tuesday, just after class ended, Leo got a call from Claire. She told him to come back to the LNS house. In her words, "The costumes and props are here. Come try them on." Leo's spirits lifted. Finally, the mystery was about to be solved. He hung up the phone, rushed out of the classroom, and hurried out of the school gates. He hailed a taxi and sped towards the LNS house. A little over 10 minutes later, he opened the door and walked into the living room, looking around immediately. "I'm back. Where's everyone? Claire? Claire?" When no one answered, he whipped his head around to look at Reasonable in his cage. "Where's your mom?" "Reasonable." Before the parrot could squawk what he perceived as an insult, footsteps sounded from upstairs, followed by a sweet, musical voice filled with laughter. "I'm here." Leo instinctively looked up. He saw a slender, jade-white hand rest on the railing of the second-floor landing. Then a radiant and beautiful figure came into view. The girl was dressed in a flowing white ancient-style robe like light gauze, with a long sword strapped to her back. Her black hair cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall, a stark contrast to her snow-white skin. Above her slender neck was a face of exquisite, otherworldly beauty. Her delicate, willow-leaf eyebrows gave her a classic charm, and her cool expression seemed as if she were untouched by the mortal world, a fairy who had stepped out of a painting. Perhaps she had just bathed, as a faint mist seemed to cling to her, making her appear as if she were shrouded in an ethereal fog, adding to her dreamlike quality. Standing at the bottom of the stairs, Leo was completely captivated. He watched, stunned, as she gracefully descended the stairs and walked towards him, unable to snap out of his trance. Seeing her boyfriend's dazed expression, a smile played on Claire's lips. She waved a hand in front of his face. "Earth to my little pervert." Leo finally came back to his senses, but he couldn't stop staring. "You're Arwen." Claire nodded with a pleased smile. Huh." She took a small step back, drew the sword, and with a flick of her wrist, performed a few elegant flourishes before sheathing it with practiced ease. The girl raised an eyebrow at her boyfriend, a hint of pride in her expression. "Well." Leo swallowed hard, feeling an unstoppable heat rising within him, like a wildfire spreading through his body. "Perfect," he breathed. "Absolutely perfect." Hearing his praise, Claire's mood soared. She lifted her chin proudly. "Of course. It took me a lot of effort to, Before she could finish, she was pulled into an embrace. His lips crashed down on hers, so forcefully that she felt her body go limp, her head spinning. You little pervert. What are you doing?" she mumbled against his lips. "Stop it. I was showing you the costume." "Don't touch that. I just put this on, MMPH." Before she could finish her frantic protest, her lips were captured once again.